And we're back. Hello. How is everyone doing? I just want to do a real quick shout out for Curious. Thank you. Thank you very, very much for the resub. I genuinely appreciate it. Every subscription helps me buy more books and get more access to content to be able to share with all of you. So, expanding the library one sub at a time. I wanted to give a quick shout out to Minecraft King and say thank you. I appreciate your patience. It's a struggle when streaming. I try to do ads before the stream. That's why I always start about 15 to 20 minutes prior to when my stream's supposed to start, because I run through as many ads as I can manage before I actually start streaming and start putting out content. So now I have like an hour and a half of leeway, so I won't have to run any ads between now and like the midway break between chapters. So, you know, we do our best. But let's see here. We are returning to Robin Hood, as written by Paul Creswick, and we'll be covering chapters 12, hopefully gonna shoot for 17. We'll see how it goes. But I swear we finished chapter 12 last time, but maybe I was misremembering, because I always save at the last point that we were reading, but I think we read 1 through 5, and then let's see here, pull that up. Yep, we read through 6 through 11, so we did read 5 chapters, and 5 chapters on on Monday. Oh my gosh, it's Wednesday. It's still weird. The new schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's throwing me completely off. But yes. Thank you all for your patience. I appreciate it. Let's get started with chapter 12. So, chapter 12 of Paul Creswick's Robin Hood and His Adventures. So, ingloriously, they returned through the night to Locksley. Stretch a little bit. So, ingloriously, they returned through the night to Locksley. None offered to stay them in the forest of Sherwood. Indeed, Robin might well have disbelieved in the existence of Will o' the Green and his outlaw band, had he not such good reason to know otherwise. It was as if Will had silently yielded him that freedom of the forest which he boasted was his to give. Tired and footsore, yet filled with a strange elation, Robin came back to Locksley before dawn, with faithful Stuteley forlornly following him. There were questions to be asked and answered when they arrived, and Warrenton was very indignant when he heard of the prince's gross favoritism of his archer Hubert. Robin seemed to show too little vexation in the matter, Warrenton thought. The man-at-arms was both perplexed and amazed by the semi-indifference displayed by the youth. Here had he, by marvellous skill, won a fine prize, and had seen the same snatched most unfairly from him, and yet was not furiously enraged, but rather amused, as it were. Surely, surely, you will go back with me tomorrow and demand the purse from the sheriff, said Warrenton in argumentative attitude. Squire George of the Hall shall give us the best of Gamewell to enforce respect to you. Nay, it matters not so much as that, Warrenton. The money I would like to have had, I'll not deny it, for it would have made me more independent of Master Monsieur. But it has not fallen to me, and there it ends. Well, 'tis well that you are so easy, lording, said Warrenton, scratching his head. Now tell us whom you saw, and how you contrived to split the Norman's arrow. Hmm. He had already heard the story, but was very fain to listen to it again. It is a trick that I taught him, dame, he added, off-handedly, to Mistress Fitzooth. One that did surprise the Norman too, I'll warrant me. You see, they are so concerned with their crossbows and other fal lals in France that when good English you— I saw, Master Will, said Robin to check him. Once Warrenton was started on a dissertation on the virtues of the English longbow, there was usually no staying him. He told me that the Scarlet Knight had gone to France. Warrenton looked wise. That is not worthy of belief, Excellence, said he cunningly. Prince John is near, and one cannot imagine that Geoffrey of Montfichet— Geoffrey of Montfichet? Asked the dame wonderingly, and then Warrenton saw how he had blundered. Why, I did not know that you had met your cousin, Robin. When was it, and why do you call him the Scarlet Knight? Geoffrey is outlawed, mother mine, and may not appear in Sherwood, answered Robin, temporizing with her. And the story of our meeting is too long a one for the moment. We are rarely fatigued, and I would gladly get me to bed. Come, Will, rouse yourself. Mother, see that we do not sleep too long. I must go to Gamewell by the day after tomorrow, at least, and there is much work between my going and now. He had determined to ask the squire to move again in the matter of the rangership for him whilst John was here. Even if the prince had unduly favored Hubert in the archery contest, it did not necessarily follow that he would be unjust in such a plain business as this. Robin kissed the dame, struggled with a yawn, and got him to rest. He slept uneasily, his dreams being strangely compounded of happiness and grief. Welcome in, Grim. Within 3 days, Robin started away for Gamewell, taking only Stuteley as before. He intended to make his return to Locksley ere dusk of the night. He intended to make his return to Locksley ere dusk of the next night. When they were far advanced on their journey, they heard sounds of a large company upon the road, and prudently Robin bade Stuteley hide with him in the undergrowth until they should see who these might be. Maybe 'tis the sheriff with Master Ford coming to seize our home. By watching them unseen, we may find a way to bring their schemes to naught. Keep near to me, Will, and scarcely breathe. It was indeed a body of men from Nottingham, and although the sheriff was not with them, Master Carfax and a few of the Lincoln bowmen were amongst the company. So also was Ford, the forester. In all, there were about 20 of men, and most of them were Sherwood foresters. Robin espied Much the miller in the tail of the procession, looking very dejected and ill, and decided to risk exposing himself. Standing up in the bracken, he called out boldly, Hold there, Master Much! Here am I, ready to take your money." "What sprite are you?" answered Much, reining in his steed sharply. "Why, 'tis the gipsy lad, as I live." That was weird. That was very weird. Why did it do that? Ah. Oh, fie. Ah, there we go. So 123. "Why, 'tis the gipsy lad, as I live." With his face nicely washed, he had recognized Robin by his clothes. "Money, forsooth! Do you know that I have not so much as a groat in my pouch?" "Then must one of the others lend it to you," replied Robin. "Pay me, friends, forthwith. A short reckoning is an easy reckoning. My arrow flew nearer the target than did any of yours." "How do you know that?" said Much. "After you had gone, we all did aim again, and very marvelous was my shooting. For sure, I should have had the prize, even as I told you, had not Hubert already made off with it." "Is that so?" asked Robin doubtfully, looking from one to the other of the Lincoln men. Those in front had now stopped also, and Master Carfax came ambling back to see what had occasioned the delay. So soon as he espied Robin, his face took a joyful look. "Here, Master Ford," he called, clapping his hands. "Hither, come hither. Here is your quarry found for you. Now you can fight it out fair and square, whilst we watch to see fair play." Ford turned about and glanced at Robin, but he did not like the notion of such a battle, so he affected not to recognize him. "Nay, this is but some vagrant fellow," said he, hesitatingly. "Let us push on, Master Simeon. 'Tis near the hour when we are to meet with him whom you know." He added these words in a low voice, and made a gesture indicating the Copemanhurst road. Carfax's face took a diabolical expression. He had begun to answer Ford when the whole party were suddenly disturbed by the rush of a great herd of royal deer. Welcome in, Casman. These beasts, driven by someone from out of their pastures, came scattering blindly adown the track, and men and horses moved quickly to one side to avoid a devastating collision. After they had passed, Carfax began again. "Form a ring, friends," cried he coaxingly. "Let neither of these fellows escape. They shall yield us some sport in any event, whether Ford be right or I." A solitary stag at this instant appeared before them. He stood, as if carved from stone, in the center of the road, at 300 paces distance. He was clearly uncertain whether to dash through his unusual enemies in an attempt to rejoin the herd, or fly backward to that unknown danger which had first startled them all. "'Tis a fine beast," hiccuped Much. "Now had I a steady hand." Simeon Carfax interrupted him. "By the Lord Harry, here is the very thing," he said, in whispered excitement. "Now, fellow, you shall prove me right, and this forester wrong. I say you are Robin of Locksley, who did split the Norman's arrow at the tourney. Fly a shaft now at yon mark. Surely none but such a bowman as yourself might dare hope to reach it." Robin fell into the very palpable trap set for him. Without answering Carfax, he fitted an arrow to his bow and sent speeding death to the trembling stag. It fell, pierced cleanly to the heart. Robin eyed Ford triumphantly, but Master Carfax now held up his hands in horror. "See what you have done, wicked youth," ejaculated he, as if quite overcome with dismay. "I bade you shoot at yon birch tree. Shimmering there to the left of the deer, did I not say, fly at yon mark? And now you have killed one of the king's deer." "I do hear that this fellow has slain others about Locksley," said Ford meanly. "You are right, Master Simeon. He is, in sooth, Robin of Locksley. Your eyes are wiser than mine. Seize him, my men." At once the forester sprang upon Robin and Stuteley, and a fierce battle was commenced. Despite a valiant resistance, Robin and Will Stuteley were soon overcome and bound hard and fast. "You villains," panted Stuteley, "and you, most treacherous," he called to Carfax, "I wish you joy of so contemptible a trick." "All's fair in war, friend," answered Carfax. "Now, Master Ford, fulfill your duty. You know the law, that if one be found killing the king's deer in the royal forest of Sherwood, he or she may be summarily hanged when caught upon the nearest tree." "It must be in flagrant delicto, Master Simeon," said Ford, uneasy again. "Could there be a plainer case?" cried Carfax, rubbing his hands. "We all did see this fellow shoot the deer. 'Tis the clearest case, and I do counsel you to deal lawfully in it, Master Ford. Remember that he also is suspected of being an outlaw, and that you saw him once use a peacocked arrow. Although I am but a layman, as it were, friend, he added, meaningly, yet I do know the law, and shall be forced to quit my conscience with the prince when I return to Nottingham. Wherefore, seeing that your appointed to Locksley still lacks its confirmation, Wherefore, seeing that your appointment to Locksley still lacks his confirmation, I would rather bring the rogue to Master Monceux, as he did command me, argued Ford, who could not quite brace himself to this. Besides, we have no leisure at the moment to carry out the law, he went on. You know that your master the prince did start us on this journey with two errands upon our shoulders. One was to deal with Robin of Locksley, said Carfax, snarlingly, and without yielding his point. To take him to Nottingham, master, I say, put in Much. I do not think that the prince meant you to harm him. Be silent, knave, snapped the lean-faced man sharply. Who gave you the right to question me? Shut your mouth, or I will have you accounted as an accomplice with these fellows, and put a noose about your bull neck also. Why harkee, master, said Much, very wrathful. This is a game where two can play, or more. I do forthwith range myself with the gipsy, and you, Midge, he added, turning to one of his company, surely you will follow. Right instantly, answered the one called Midge, a little ferret of a man, and I also, and I, Master Much. So spoke the remaining Lincoln men. So are we six, then, said Much. He tumbled off his horse, and the other three of them did the like, and then strode over to where Robin stood. Release him, said the miller determinedly, and he promptly knocked two of the foresters sprawling. This was the signal for a general encounter, and all threw themselves very heartily into the melee. The miller and his men struggled to release Robin and Stuteley, so that these might help in the fray, but the foresters were too many for them. Twice did Much get his hands upon Robin's bonds, only to be plucked violently backward. The men tumbled one upon the other in the fight, pummeling, clutching, and tearing at each other in a wild confusion. They made little noise, all being too desperately in earnest. Ford encouraged his foresters by word and gesture, and Carfax kept himself as far out of it as possible. Presently, three of the foresters overpowered the good-natured, still half-tipsy miller, and held him down. Then Master Carfax sprang from his horse and rushed in upon the prostrate miller. Seizing one of the forester's pikes, the lean-faced man foully swung it down upon Much's pate with a sounding thwack. The miller gave a groan and became limp in the hands of his assailants. Now, surely that it is the meanest of all the mean deeds which you have done, cried Robin. He tore at his bonds fiercely and vainly, biting at the cord about his wrists with his teeth. Carfax ran to his horse. In an instant he had returned with a cord taken from under his saddle. I had a notion that this might be useful to me when I set out this morn, he said. Put it about his neck as soon as a noose is fashioned. Now fling the end of it over this branch. Now draw it tight. Steadily, I pray you, be not over quick. The prisoner has the right to speak a prayer ere he is hanged. Say it then, Robin of Locksley. Robin caught sight at this instant of poor Stuteley's face. He had been knocked down in the fight, and being bound, had lain where he had fallen. His eyes met Robin's in an anguished glance, and his lips trembled in an attempt at speech. Robin strove to smile at him, but his own soul was sick within his body. He felt the cord tighten again about his throat, but even as the world reeled black, Robin heard dully the sound of a horn. In familiar tones it came in upon his fainting brain. The next instant came a jerk at the rope, futile, if infuriated. Then suddenly contact with a body falling heavily against his own. And as he fell, he knew that something warm and horrid trickled upon his hands. Then followed a vast confusion of noise, and, in the midst of it, sweet peace. Oof. Big oofs. Sides of oofs. Extra oofs. Very scary things happening. My goodness. All right, that was chapter 12. And for those not familiar with my content, as a friendly reminder, between chapters, I recommend that people hydrate, caffeinate, grab a snack, do whatever it is that you need to feel comfortable and enjoy the story. Mm. Speaking of caffeinating, that is so good today. Mm. All right. We are on to chapter 13. And let's see here. Bear with me a second. There we go. Chapter 13. Aw, Grim! Thanks. Oh my gosh, you subscribed.
Grim Glassman just
Thanks.
subscribed.
I appreciate it. Also, welcome in, Sino. Thanks for the lurk. A lot of people hanging out in the Do Not Disturb section. I hope you're enjoying the story. Thank you for the sub, Grim. Chapter 13. When Robin came to his senses, he found himself surrounded by the outlaw band. On this occasion, they appeared as friends, however, and welcome ones to boot, for it had been a near matter that Robin's history had been ended by Master Carfax on this day. Now were the tables turned, and very completely. The foresters had been overcome by Will and his outlaws, thanks to the diversion brought about by the Lincoln men. Much was sitting up with a more rueful countenance than he had when Robin had first spied him on this morning, and little sharp-nosed Midge was busy bathing and binding his cracked pole. Some half-score of the foresters, with Master Ford, had escaped along the road towards Locksley. The rest were bound, and their horses confiscated by the outlaws. Master Simeon, with rage and terror depicted plainly upon his countenance, lay writhing at Robin's feet, bound with the very cord with which he had sought to end young Fitzooth's life. To end young Fitzooth's life. His enemies had trussed him across a quarterstaff and had tied the knots large and tight about him. Well, Locksley, how now? Asked Will o' the Green, with gruff kindness. Are the vapors past? Can you twiddle your bow again? Not skilfully enough now to take place against you, Will, smiled Robin, recovering himself more and more. I am a-trembling yet. I had thought to see the blue sky no more. Little too close of a call there. Aye, my man's arrow was not too soon, Locksley, said Will gravely. This fellow's hand was upon the rope, and another moment might have seen you gallows fruit upon this tree. He paused to bend over a forester lying prone near them, with his face buried in the grass. Robin saw that the man's body was transfixed by an arrow. He is no more, Will told them, looking up presently. Your aim was a shrewd one, Hal, he went on, addressing himself to one of his band. Is he indeed dead? Asked Robin in an awestruck voice. 'Twas his life or yours, answered Will o' the Green grimly. He turned to his men. Now, comrades, cried he, have you searched our prisoners and prepared them? 'Tis well. Are they bound together, then, by the arms, twos and threes, as is appointed in our rules? And is the right leg and left leg of each villain shackled together? Stand them up, then, with their faces toward Nottingham, and bid them march. There is yet this one, Captain, said one of the men, indicating Carfax. What shall we do with him? Has he been searched closely? Inquired Will. Without waiting a reply, he roughly ran his fingers through Master Carfax's pockets and unfastened his tunic at the bosom. A parchment dropped out, and Will snapped it up. I come from the prince, whined Carfax, speaking at last, and if so be you are Master Will Cloudsley. Cloudsley? And if so be you are Master and if so be you are Master Will Cloudsley, or Will o' the Green, as these folks do call you, why, I have a very gracious message for you. The outlaw gave a signal to his men. Set him upon his feet, he ordered, and loosen these cords. Now, Excellence, speak at your ease. Believe him not, Master Will, interposed Stuteley, afraid that Carfax was going to turn the tables on them in some treacherous way. He is a very proper rogue. Be easy, friend, said Will o' the Green. Everyone is judged here in fairness. These men, pointing to the shamefaced, miserable foresters, were caught in the doing of an evil deed, and so were dealt with summarily. But this one did not seem to have a hand in it. It was he who commanded them, sir, suddenly shrilled the little Lincoln named Midge. He is, in sooth, a diabolical villain, and did very foully strike our companion here whilst men were holding him. All testify against you, Excellence, said the outlaw, speaking again to Carfax. What is your story of it? Speak without fear. This rascal did imprudently waylay us on the road with a demand for money, began Carfax, and I, riding back at his noise, did recognize him for one Robin Locksley, a notorious fellow who has defied my lord the sheriff's authority, and has also been suspect of being of your company, which is a thing, saving your presence, Master Cloudsley, that has been poor recommendation in the past. Further, with our own eyes have we seen him shoot and kill one of his Majesty's stags, a most valued beast with 16 pointed antlers, as you can see. We were but exercising the law upon him as is appointed. That is to say, Master Ford was directing his men to carry out the law, said Carfax, with his thin cheeks pale with fear. I did but counsel prudence and plead for the youth. Enough, cried Will, with contempt in his tones. Now tell me the message which the prince has sent by so worthy a messenger. That is for your private ear, said Simeon cunningly. You may speak plainly before my comrades, said Will. Doubtless they are interested in the royal words as I myself. I was to bid you come at once to the city gate, so many of you as would, Carfax said. There is there to receive the king's pardon from the hands of our beloved prince. Indeed, his gracious highness did well expect to see you before him 3 days agone at the tourney. Dressed about with red ribbons, I trow? Inquired the outlaw, as if helping him. Indeed, yes, Master Cloudsley. You have said it, indeed. Knowledge of your loyalty to us was brought to the prince by me. By me, good friend, he repeated insinuatingly. And now give back to me my parchment, which, being writ in the Latin tongue, is truly no more than a cartel to my lord the abbot of York. And let us set forth joyfully, for henceforth ye will be as a free man. Ye will be as free men, and what is past will be forgotten. I can read you the scroll, Will, said Robin quietly. I have some knowledge of the priestly tongue. The outlaw handed him the scroll, and all waited in silence whilst Robin deciphered it. Carfax snapped his teeth together in vexation at this unexpected turn. He cannot read the parchment. Is it likely? He cried. He will but pretend to read it and make lies with which to confound me. 'Tis writ in most scholarly Latin, that only few may learn. There is treachery here for you, Will, spoke Robin without heeding these outcries. This is a notification from the prince to the abbot of York, saying that his emissaries have sounded you, and that you are ready with your men to strike for him. I have said so much, commented Will, naming 3 conditions. They are written herein. First, that a general amnesty is to be granted. Second, that the ban of excommunication is to be removed from off you by the Holy Church. And third, that the prince shall find your men afterward honorable employment. That is so, Locksley. The letter is exact. So the prince writes to the abbot, asking him to promise asking him to promise the second of your conditions, saying that it need be only a promise, for he has not the least intention of holding to the bargain with one so evil as yourself, and that after he has won the throne from Henry his father, and matters such as these will be disposed of by his soldiery, if need be. It is not true, screamed Carfax. He lies to you, Master Cloudsley, seeking to be revenged revenged on me. Any clerk can read these lines to you, Will, answered Robin. The prince continues, praying for the welfare of them all at York, and saying that he has already promised in the abbot's name that the loan shall be taken off, that the abbot is to receive and watch narrowly one Geoffrey of Montfichet, who has been exiled for treason, but who now imprudently has returned to work on their behalf in England. Now do I know that you are reading truly, cried Will, and his brow grew black. For how could you know that your cousin was concerned in this? You false-hearted knave, he added, turning to Carfax, false as your false matter, false as your false as your false master, your doom is sealed. Tie him up by his heels, and let him hang head downward from this tree whereon he would have hung gallant Locksley. Be speedy, men. At this, Simeon Carfax became as one quite demented, and Robin interposed. Let us not punish the man for his master's fault, Will, cried he. Deal with him only on the score of my quarrel with him, when I shall say, let him go. For I shall always feel shame were we to be as harsh with an enemy as he would be with us. It would show us no better than he. Take him then, since Locksley will have it, so, and tie his legs under the belly of his horse, first setting him face to tail upon it. And Will, said Will, and you, Hal, go and cut me the antlers from off yon poor beast. When this was done, he caused his men to attach the horns by means of a cord to Master Carfax's head. Then, with his own hand, Will gave the horse a lead towards Nottingham. Then, with a view hallo, the steed bearing the unfortunate man was started in real earnest, and the foresters sent staggering by after it along the road to Nottingham. When they were out of sight, Robin thanked the outlaw again for all that he had done for them. Will merely shrugged his shoulders, as one who would say, "'Tis a matter not worth breath," and giving his men a signal, prepared to return to his own fastnesses. What a weird word. His own fastnesses. Robin begged them to take the body of the deer, and, with small reluctance, the outlaws accepted the offer. The Lincoln men bade Robin farewell also, saying that they would now go on towards their own homes with a light heart, for having met the outlaws and found them most agreeable company, they had no more fear of Sherwood. So Robin and little Stuteley, waving farewell to all these strange friends, moved on towards Gamewell, although Robin really had little hope now of coming by the prince's grace into what seemed to be but his rights. The sheriff and Simeon Carfax would attend to that, no doubt. A curious dejection settled upon Robin. He had nothing but gloomy thoughts upon him as he trudged towards the squire's domain. Nor did his spirits rise at his reception by old Gamewell. The squire appeared almost uneasy with him, and was short in his speech, although once or twice a kindlier light flashed in his bright eyes. Already he regrets that he should have pressed me to take up the Montfichet name, thought Robin to himself, imagining that herein was the cause of the squire's distemper. He began to tell Montfichet of their doings and adventures, but had no sooner come to the part of the narrative referring to the prince's purse that the squire broke out. "Talk not to me of that man," cried he vehemently. "He is an unworthy son of a much-tried father. Forsooth, this has become an age of disobedience and unfilial behavior. One has but to look round to find most sons alike. The 5th commandment is now without meaning to the younger generation." "I have no father, sir," said poor Robin, half in defence, for Gamewell looked so fiercely at him. "Nor do I seek to keep you to your offer," added he in his thoughts. "I was not thinking so much of you, boy," replied the squire, and again a better expression shone briefly in his face. "Give you good night, Robin Locksley. You know your chamber. Sleep well, and we will talk together in the morning." The morning saw no easement of the squire's attitude towards Robin, and as soon as breakfast was ended, he determined to go, without wasting breath, upon the errand which had brought him. For sure, he is repenting of his offer, reasoned Robin. Perchance already his heart is moved again towards Joffrey, and who shall be more glad than I to find this so? I'll let the squire think it comes from me, as in truth it does, this whimsy to prefer the name of Fitzooth to Montfichet. So bravely as he was about to leave him, Robin spoke to the old man. Sir, he said, I have it in me to speak plain words with you as I may, and I may. Have no fear, boy. I am one who loves an open mind. Montfichet spoke with meaning. Well, sir, I would say with reference to that which once did press upon my mother and myself. I misread that word. Well, sir, I would say with reference to that which you once did press upon my mother and myself, that I should take your name and half fortune with my cousin Joffrey. That I have thought well upon your kind offer. There was to be a year go by, Master Fitzooth, ere you should give answer. In a year or now, sir, said Robin firmly, I cannot see that I should accept. I have no quarrel with my cousin, and I will not come between him and your heart, which pleads against yourself on his behalf. Montfichet broke forth then, and Robin learned suddenly what had come between him and this strange, capricious man. No quarrel with Joffrey, say you, he shouted, bringing his fist down with violence upon the oak table. No, I trow you have not, Robin Fitzooth, but I have a quarrel both with him and you. Know that I have heard the story of your escapade with this mean son of mine, who must come prowling like a thief in the night about the walls of Gamewell. I know the Scarlet Knight's secret, and yours. Who did think it brave to deceive and outwit an old man? Sir, began Robin, aghast at this storm. Nay, I will hear no more of it, treachery and deceit. Always they hang about my house. You deceived me, Robin Fitzooth, and cozened my servant Warrenton. So I cast you out of my heart forever. For the rest of my days I will be sufficient unto myself. After I am gone, the dogs may quarrel above my grave for the bones of Gamewell. He almost pushed Robin from him and turned brusquely away. Dazed and confounded, Robin faltered rather than walked to reach Stuteley, who stood awaiting him in the courtyard. Without a word, Robin took his hand. Come, Will, let us go, he muttered thickly, and with wrathful heart Robin Fitzooth shook the dust of Gamewell from off his feet. Faintly, through his mind came memory of the clerk's warning, but it was all of it so unjust. He had never intended to deceive the squire. All that he had done had been without thought. After all, what fault had he committed against Montfichet? "For heaven," said Robin furiously, "I never will speak with the man again, nor cross the threshold of his house." So the clouds gathered more and more thickly over the head of Robin Fitzooth. All right, here we are. Another chapter down. Not so bad. I feel like these ones are going a little bit faster today, so we might do more than 5 depending on how long they are. Poor Robin. That his uncle would think so poorly of him just because he was a young teenage boy helping his cousin. Oof. Anyway, we are on to chapter 14. And as a friendly reminder, hydrate, caffeinate, grab a snack, do whatever it is you need to relax and enjoy the story. Chapter 14. The Demoiselle Marie was behind all this. She had known Joffrey's plan from her lover, Master Carfax, for Master Carfax had interviews with those two of Will's band, Roger and Micah, the traitors sworn against Joffrey. 'Twas all wheel within wheel and plot within plot. Carfax had by nature a face made to show differently on either side of it. Thus he was in service with the prince, and whilst knowing the younger Montfichet to be his master's ally, affected outwardly to recognize him as one against whom the hands of all righteous men should be raised. Master Simeon had gone forth with the prince's message to Will o' the Green, and with John Ford in order that he might install the latter worthy at Locksley. Afterward, Simeon was to journey to the Priory of York, as we know. Marie Montceau, to complete Robin's undoing, bade her father go to Gamewell, and there tell Montfichet how Robin had helped Joffrey to his scarlet-ribboned horse, giving the squire the story as it come through the two false outlaws. Certain proof she sent in a strip of the red cloth, which Montfichet well knew to belong only to his house at Gamewell. So suddenly Montfichet's mind was poisoned against Robin, with the result that we have seen. The squire began now to believe Ford's tale that young Fitzooth was of the outlaw band, and at once withdrew all support of Robin so far as the rangership of Locksley was concerned. No doubt, thought the squire bitterly, he is the son of his father, in discontent and false pride. Fitzooth never was frank with me, and has trained his son to distrust and deceive all men. Truly, the sheriff's daughter was exacting full penalty for Robin's disregard of her at the Nottingham fair. She had employed her hand also against the maid Fitzwalter, as we shall find later. Robin, in forbidding silence, strode along the road until they neared the shrine at St. Dunstan, when he looked eagerly toward the stout little hut of the clerk, hoping to find his old friend standing at the door of it with his barking dogs. All was silent, however, and deserted. To Robin's surprise, the gate of the palisade stood wide open, and the door of the hut also. He glanced at Will. "Surely the priest is abroad imprudently, master," said young Stuteley. "See how he has left his little house, open to the world. He must be of a very trusting nature, for sure." "I remember now that the gate was unlatched yesterday," spoke Robin slowly. "I noticed it then, and meant to talk with you on the point, Will. I hope that no evil has befallen the clerk." "'Tis 3 weeks or more since we have had tidings of him," said Stuteley. "Shall we go in and make search?" I'm hearing a sound. What is that? Strange. It's like a break sound. How very odd. I have no idea where that's coming from, and luckily I don't think the mic is picking it up, so I'll just take it as it is. They entered the rude dwelling, and soon exhausted every hole and corner of it in a vain hunt for some token of the clerk. The kennels at the back were empty and forlorn, and some bread which they found in the hermit's tiny larder was mouldy and very stale. "Hello, Kairu. Welcome in." Hello to the very to the pretty kitty. Thank you. Yeah. Let's see. "Let us push on to Locksley, Will. Mayhap we shall have better cheer waiting us there." They trudged on quietly. His master's depression had reached and overcome Mary Stuteley. They began unconsciously to walk quickly, and more quickly still as they approached Locksley. The day was overcast and very still. Presently Robin, throwing back his head, sniffed the air. "Surely there is a strange smell in these woods, Will. Does it not seem to you that there is a taste of burning grasses in the breeze?" "Master," answered Stuteley, his face suddenly paling at some inner fear, "I do smell fire, such as a blazing house would give forth. Well do I know the scent of it, having seen our own home burned last year. Hurry, hurry, Will. My heart misgives me. Some further disaster is upon us. This is my evil day, I know. Hurry for the love of me." They set off at a frenzied scamper through the woods, taking the short footpath which would lead them to the back of the house of Locksley. Robin broke through the trees and undergrowth and hastily scaled the fence that railed off their garden from the wild woods. A dread sight met his starting eyes. Dull brown smoke curled from under the eaves of his home in dense clouds. The windows were gaping rounds from which ever and anon red flames gushed forth. A torrid heat was added to the sickening odor of the doomed homestead. Somebody grasped him by the hand. "Thanks be that you are returned, Excellence," spoke a rough voice with emotion. "This is a sorry welcome." "My mother?" gasped Robin blankly, and his heart stood still for Warrenton's answer. "Not a hair of her head has been touched. Old Warrenton would not stand here to tell you the sorry tale, were it otherwise. But the house must go. 'Tis too old and dry a place for mortal hand to save." Stuteley had joined them by this, and the three gazed for a minute in stupefied silence on the flaming destruction of that home so dear to Robin Fitzooth. Warrenton, grimed and righteously angry, began his tale. Yesterday, at dusk, the sound of a winding horn had brought them all anxiously to the garden. "We thought that you had returned with young Stuteley," said the old man-at-arms, "but we found ourselves facing none other than Master Ford the forester, with about six or more of the most insolent of his men. Peremptorily he bade us deliver up this house to him, pulling out a warrant from his bosom and waving it before your mother's face." "Ford, was it?" questioned Robin. Then light broke in upon him. Yesterday, after the battle between Will's band and that of Master Carfax, some of the defeated foresters had fled to the north of Sherwood. "You must bear up, young master," said Warrenton. "The squire will doubtless build you a new home." "Alas, Warrenton, Master Montfichet has turned against me now," said Robin then, "and against you also. Continue your story, and you shall hear ours when you have done." So Warrenton continued, telling them how John Ford had made an attempt to seize the place, how Warrenton and the few servants had striven to beat him back, and how after valiant fighting they had succeeded in keeping them from taking the house at least. The garden they could not retain. But Warrenton, having established himself at one of the upper windows, had so shrewdly flown his arrows that Ford himself had been wounded and one of his men killed outright. Night had fallen upon them in this way, and the dame thought it would be a good scheme for one of her maids to now endeavor to slip out and arouse the village to their help. One of the women therefore essayed the journey, but was so clumsy as to attract the enemy's attention. She was seized, and made to confess how the house was protected and where it was most likely to fall before a sharp assault. Being a witless wench, she told them truly, and Master Ford then bade her help them collect sticks and leaves in order that they might be able to fire the place as a last resource. Those within had thought that the girl had managed to evade danger, and cheerfully waited for help from the village. A determined attack was commenced at daybreak, and Ford and his men succeeded in gaining possession of the kitchens without loss. Another of the servants was captured. Also, a second maidservant was injured by an arrow, so seriously as to die within 20 minutes. What is that sound? That is so bizarre. It's like a low-pitched screeching. I don't think it's that. What a time to follow me. Hi, Serge. Welcome in. It almost sounds like it's from outside, which means I have no control over it. That's unfortunate. All right. 'Tis what it is. A determined attack was commenced at daybreak, and Ford and his men succeeded in gaining possession of the kitchens without loss. Another of the servants was captured. Also, a second maidservant was injured by an arrow so seriously as to die within 20 minutes. Warrenton kept the stairs and barricaded the inner door from the kitchens by putting tables and chairs against it. At length a parley was called, and Ford shouted his conditions through the keyhole. The besieged then learned that the distant village was still unaware of their peril. Ford offered to let them all go forth free if now they would yield up the house to him. Mistress Fitzooth had a mind to accept, but Warrenton counselled no. After a long argument, Ford swore that he would burn the house over their heads if they did not surrender it within an hour. And going back to the garden, he began to bring in the loose, dry pieces of wood and sticks he and his men had collected in the night. At 3 hours after noon, Ford, having given one more warning to them, had bidden his fellows do the worst. In a few moments the smell of burning filled the house, and Mistress Fitzooth became as one distraught. We had 2 women left to us, Warrenton continued, and a lad, who was worth as much as a man to me. I bade them open the door softly, and rush forth whilst the wretches were employed at their fiendish work in the rear. This we did, and so gained unperceived the little shed near by the gate. From a crack in the boards I could command bowshot of the whole front, and I had given the lad a bow of yours. The 2 maids, taking your mother's hands, pulled her along under the hedge until they gained the road. Then all 3 ran furiously toward the village. We who were left behind had not long to wait. Presently one came round to the front with a piece of flaming wood and boldly thrust it through the nearest lattice. Him I killed at once with an arrow through the back. They were now but 5 against us. Presently 2 others came stealthily from the back, but seeing their companion dead, ran back hastily. Master Ford appeared next, and began to look suspiciously about him. His fellow had rolled over in his death struggles, and so might have been slain from my window in the house front. Curls of smoke were coming up from under the thatch by now, and Ford, making up his mind, ran out with the others and flung himself upon the door. We had left it latched, and so it gave enough of resistance in his blind attack to justify him in believing it was still held from within. It fell inwards at last with a crash, and Ford sprang triumphantly across the threshold. His fellows rushed after him, trying now to beat out the fire. Warrenton paused, and all fell again to watching the leaping flames. Meanwhile, I had guessed that your mother was safe, and had already alarmed the villagers, continued the old retainer. So, with a shout, I rushed out upon the villains with the lad, and pulled the broken door back to its place, shutting them in, that they might enjoy their own fell work in all security. Two of them did attempt escape just since by leaping from out of the window, but my bow was ready strung for them. Have you killed 4 men, then, Warrenton? Said Robin, with blood running cold. Then suddenly the full meaning of it flashed upon him. And Ford? He cried with a gesture of horror. And the 2 others? Nay, said Warrenton grimly. I had come round here to see whether they had preference for fire or for my arrows, having left the boy to guard the front. Then I saw you and young Stuteley, and in my chattering I had nigh come to forget them. But there is Master Ford beckoning to us from your own room. A frenzied, dreadful figure had indeed appeared for a brief instant amongst the thick curling smoke. It waved 2 hopeless hands out towards the falling dusk, and then incontentedly vanished. A thin scream sounded in Robin's ears, as a rush of flame mercifully swallowed up this apparition. Like as not, 'twas the sound of the fire itself. The end had come, both to the unhappy foresters and Robin's home. With a huge torrent of noise, the roof of it crushed in, half stifling the fire. Then the flames seized full mastery, and amid a shower of sparks the red tongues licked and devoured the last of their prey. What a terrible way to go. Let's see. Robin hastened to find his mother, that he might be relieved of his anxiety, and be rid of, for the moment, of the sight of the awful catastrophe of the fire. Warrenton and Stuteley rushed in together at his command to try to save the two remaining foresters. But it was a very forlorn hope. Warrenton, in his just revenge, had pushed things to their extreme limits. Master Ford and all his band had paid the utmost penalty of their failure to overcome this relentless old man. Mistress Fitzooth had secured refuge and was now much calmer. She embraced her son and wept over him in joy at this reunion. Robin could see, however, that she was indeed much overwrought by these troubles. She had not yet recovered from the loss of her husband. They stayed with these poor people, who found room for them somehow out of sheer charity. For neither Robin nor the dame had any money. It was a bitter business, in sooth. And next day Robin, finding his mother far from well, humbled himself to beg assistance from the squire. He dispatched a letter by Warrenton, and then patiently set himself to wait a reply. Welcome in, Panda. Or do you prefer Gizmo these days? Welcome in, all of you wonderful raiders. I don't know if you've been here before, but hello, I am Vexing Cat. Welcome to my library. If you've not been here before, I am a retro tiger librarian. I primarily read classic literature and poetry, and occasionally,
Hi.
hi, and occasionally play various video games. Feel free to take a moment to get settled in, and remember to hydrate, caffeinate, grab a snack, curl up with a blanket. If you need to, just take a break. And
MRW11LD
Panda,
just followed.
since you're bringing everyone here, I know you've been streaming for a while. Hi, Fallen. For those that have been in the thick of it, please take all the time you need. Feel free to lurk. I am reading Robin Hood and His Adventures today, so yes, I'm almost finished with chapter 14. Also, thank you for the follow, Mr. Wild. Different Mr. Wild. Just got back from the theater and I have soup and salad and caffeine. Good choices. And hello, Panda. Chapter 15. Mistress Fitzooth never saw Gamewell or her brother again. Oh, while I forget, or before I forget, let's see. Do a quick. Let's see what random old clip it decides to pull for you, Panda. We shall see.
Oh, I'm a fucking idiot.
Oh. I see.
Yes, quite. Yeah.
I don't have any context for this. I have so many questions, Panda. Yes. So, Red Lethal Panda is a Red Panda variety streamer, primarily plays video games. Awesome content. They're part of the Underrealm, another huge community of amazing streamers. Some of the nicest people that I've had the pleasure of getting to spend time with. If you haven't been to their content before, Aloria is an Oni, Elmo is just a variety streamer, Wildosis is a horror-based VTuber. Tiny Draculina is another amazing streamer. Though they are going to be on short hiatus while they're healing up. They had a bit of an injury recently. All of them. That whole community is just some of the nicest people. Devi is an amazing what's the word I'm looking for? Where you edit like an editor. does amazing video editing. Um, Plushie ready, blanket ready, cozy reader ready, time for a great night's sleep. Yes, I am. I hope you enjoy this story. I am rambling, so let me go ahead and finish chapter 14. We'll take a second to hydrate and caffeinate, and then we'll start chapter 15. I'd like to get through at least one more chapter before the mid stream break, and then I'll use the restroom at that time. We'll run another 3-minute ad, and when we come back, we'll finish the rest of our reading from today. All right, let's see here. Also, he determined to seek an audience with the prince. His home had been burned, his small patrimony gone. He had now no means of keeping himself and the dame from starvation, save by living on another man's bread. The clerk, his one tried friend, was gone. No one knew where. The prince would surely yield him the right to be ranger at Locksley in his father's place. The house had been given to dead Hugh Fitzooth by Henry the King. An uneasy feeling took possession of Robin, for Warrenton had defied and overcome the sheriff's man when he had been properly empowered to expel mother and son from Locksley, and there were 7 dead men, nay, 8, to be accounted for, and they were all of them king's foresters. Montfichet answered him by sending a purse of money and a curt letter saying that Mistress Fitzooth was to come to Gamewell, where for the rest of her days she would always find a home. For Robin he could do nothing. Already the sheriff had drawn up a proclamation of outlawry against him, setting the price of 100 crowns upon him, living or dead. Dun dun dun. Poor Robin. He's just like, my house! Warrenton murdering people left and right. I mean, to be fair, they were trying to steal his home, but I don't know. There was no good way to end that skirmish without somebody getting hurt in the process. It's just kind of one of those worst possible outcomes. Give me a second here before we start the next chapter. All right, so we've got our coffee, our water, and our good story. We are on to chapter 15. Mistress Fitzooth never saw Gamewell or her brother again. Her disorder took a sudden and fatal turn, and within a week Robin found himself doubly an orphan, without home, money, or hope. Only 2 good friends had he, little Stuteley and staunch Warrenton. The squire had refused to see the latter, and had sent him to reply to Robin's note by one of the servants. Montfichet was angered with Warrenton because he had been deceived by him. Robin laid his mother to rest beside his father. That was as long as he might dare stay in Locksley. Every day he feared to be seized by Master Monsieur's myrmidons. Myrmidons? That's a word. M-Y-R. That's definitely a word. Okay. That helps if you type. Myrmidon. Myrmidon? Where did the E's come from? I don't know. Myrmidonese. Myrmidonese. Okay. Classical mythology, one of the warlike people of ancient Thessaly, who accompanied Achilles to the Trojan War. A person who executes without question or scruple a master's commands. Interesting. Myrmidonese. Okay. Every day he feared to be seized by Master Monsieur's Myrmidonese. 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 Oh my gosh, it's so hard to say. Myrmidons. Myrmidons. Oh my goodness. To be seized by Master Monsieur's Myrmidons, Stuteley kept watch on the road through Sherwood by day and Warrenton by night. The morning of the interment brought news of danger. One of the few faithful foresters of Locksley was at his post. The rest, having no master, had disported themselves upon their own various errands, and he heard from a shepherd that a body of soldiers were journeying to Locksley. Full 210 of them there were, one, the leader, carrying a warrant for Robin's arrest. The forester hastened to save his young master. The time was short. Robin had scarcely paused to perform the last sad offices above his mother's grave ere he must be flying for his life. His only chance was to take to the woods and hide in them. Warrenton urged him to seek shelter in the thicker forest about Barnesdale, at the northwestern end of Sherwood. Whispers gave a story that the higher parts were honeycombed with strange caves, and all the countryside knew that away in Barnesdale were the headquarters and camps of the Will o' the Green. It was the place of all others for shelter, and Stuteley became joyful in the thought of the adventures that must chance to them therein. Warrenton was sober, however, over it. He had presentiment that the days would be hard and the food scanty and plain. Still, 'twas a man's life after all. They nearly plunged themselves into the hands of the enemy by mistaking their road. So it chanced that Robin spied his old enemy Simeon Carfax and narrowly missed being seen also by him. The three fugitives hid themselves high up in the branches of a tree, and watched with beating hearts their enemies hurrying onward to Locksley. With the band of soldiers, pikemen, and foresters were two whom Robin observed narrowly. Sounds of their talk reached his ears, and since these two fellows rode somewhat apart from the rest, Robin was able to distinguish their chattering. He had unfailing ear for a voice. These were those traitors in Will's band, the two outlaws whom he had encountered on the day of the jousting at Nottingham Fair. Roger and Micah, murmured Robin to himself after listening a while. Yes, those were the names they used then. So, friends, I am forearmed against you, for I will step with heavy foot in your concerns by and by, when I do find Master Will o' the Green, Roger, and Micah I'll not forget. Yeah. Soon as they had passed, the three slid quietly to the ground, and thereafter betook themselves very cautiously through the wood. Robin determined to find Will soon as he might and lay his case before him. The outlaw would give him refuge, no doubt. The noise of the soldiers passed away in a murmuring discordance, and the three fugitives walked now more boldly towards Barnesdale. Ere sundown they were very heartily tired. They lay themselves down in the long grasses, and while two slumbered, the third watched. Such foods as dry bread and berries were all that they could command, but there was water in plenty. The evening came, and after it night, and so to break of the next day. Robin would have recommenced the flight as soon as they had bathed themselves in a little shallow stream. Ere an hour of daylight was theirs, sounds of hurried approach warned them to be alert. Someone was crashing recklessly through the wood, following their trail clearly. Robin bade Warrenton and little Stuteley hide on either hand, whilst he put himself directly in the path of this pursuer. It proved to be none other than that one faithful forester of Locksley, who had warned him of the soldiery. Robin welcomed him all the more gladly when he heard that this good fellow meant to throw in his own fortunes with those of his unjustly treated young master. He had news for them, too. It transpired that Master Carfax had several duties in hand, as was his wont. First, he had to seize Robin and bring him, alive or dead, to the sheriff. Next, he was to declare all the Fitzooth property to be confiscated, and having put seal upon any of it that might be left from the fire, he had to install a temporary ranger, one of the Sherwood men, whom he might think fit and trustworthy. Then, a messenger was to be dispatched with another parchment to the Abbot of York, writ this time in true Norman tongue. After these things were executed, Master Simeon was to turn his men about and march them determinedly upon the outlaw stronghold, which was now known to be at Barnesdale, and exterminate the band. A task none so easy after all. For the satisfactory doing of these small commissions, Carfax was to receive 150 pieces of gold, and also would be accepted by the sheriff as a fitting husband for the pale, hard-eyed demoiselle Marie of Montceau. 'Twas this reward that made Master Simeon desperate and dangerous. The forester, John Barry, by name, told Robin further that Carfax had clothed his body in chainmail, and was carrying a dreadful axe in his belt, with which to avenge the insult put upon him in the matter of the stag's horns. "Let us seek Barnesdale forthwith," said Robin. "I am agog to warn Will o' the Green, for he has been a stout friend to me." "Hurry then, master," cried Barry the forester. "You are not far from Barnesdale road. In sooth, as I followed your tracks, I wondered how you had come so far within a very short space. You are now within a touch of Gamewell." It was true. In the mazy forest they had nearly described a circle, and were now perilously nigh to Gamewell and the squire. An idea came to Robin. He turned to Warrenton. "Could we but find that underground path whereby cousin Geoffrey came and went from the Pleasance, old friend," said he, "why, we might we might play the yellow lady to purpose." "Excellence," replied Warrenton. "I will undertake to bring you to the forest entrance of Master Will's castle within a score of minutes." "Lead us, Warrenton, and I prithee be better guide than you have been so far in this adventure." After taking many bypaths and through a big tunnel-shaped cave, the path became dry again and lighter, and soon they saw that the end was near. They emerged presently, tired and dirtied, and found themselves under the bank of a little jumping woodland river, far down in a gorge of rock and brake, studded and overhung with thick trees. It was a wild spot, and only the notes of the birds and the rush of the falling water disturbed it. But ere they had proceeded a quarter of a mile up the bank of the stream, a sudden bend in it brought them the harsh noise of desperate and near fighting. Loud shouts and battle cries sounded on their left, and running speedily in this direction, our four adventurers chanced upon a strange sight. It was strange by the manner of their view of it. For having clambered up the bank to the top of the gorge, they saw themselves on the highest edge of a spur of ground, with the low-down rocky valley of the river behind, and before them a little narrow plain. As equally below them as was the water they had left, on this plain were a number of men engaged in deadly battle. Round and about were the thick dark woods of Barnesdale. A moment's glance showed Robin that they had arrived too late to help Will o' the Green by way of warning. The outlaw's foes were upon him, and seemingly had the robber and his band at a disadvantage. The ground descended below the four onlookers so abruptly as to cut them off from the plain. They were near to the battle, and yet altogether remote from it. "Our arrows must do duty for us, then," muttered Robin, grimly, soon as he understood this. "Fit shafts across your bows, friends, and aim with all your hearts in it. Let not those of either side see us. 'Tis thus that our services shall be of most value to Master Will." They dropped to their knees and aimed their arrows carefully. They had full quivers with them, and Warrenton and Robin felt themselves in a manner to be pitted one against the other. The battle raged so furiously below, however, that for a minute these allies were compelled to remain idle, not daring to loose their shafts for fear of slaying friends as well as foes. Sounds of a horn, shrill and impatient, suddenly called the soldiers back to their ranks beside Master Carfax. Robin spied this worthy now, and saw that he bestrode a black horse clumsily, as if armored indeed. Simeon evidently had withdrawn his men from a melee for fear that in it he might not be properly protected. He was seen to be issuing orders very peremptorily. Peremptorily? Yeah, peremptorily. What a word. Oh, I forgot. For for the Myrmidonian, Myrmidonian, that word. Myrmidonese. There we go. Mm. Meanwhile, the outlaws rallied themselves to their leader's side. They were sadly decreased in numbers, and whilst the living thus formed about in battle array, there were many poor fellows of both sides left upon the field who stirred not even to the imperative commands of their commanders. Now was Robin's chance. "Choose your man, each of you," said he in a in a suppressed eagerness, "and soon as the soldiers issue at the charge, shoot down upon your mark." Carfax gave an order almost as he spoke. Instantly Robin loosed his arrow, and singing death flew from it. He overturned the soldier nearest to Master Simeon, even as Warrenton's shaft struck another dead at once. The Forester Barry and Little Stuteley added to this confusion, both wounding the same soldier simultaneously. Then Carfax, believing that these arrows came from Will's band, sounded a charge and spurred his horse forward amongst his pikemen. They rushed forward with swinging axe and clanking sword upon the outlaws, who now delivered a sudden stream of shafts. These Robin's band supplemented by shrewder arrows. 7 of the soldiers rolled over as they ran, killed forthwith, and Robin, having pricked Simeon's horse, shot him again in the ear, whilst meaning to find his master. The beast plunged wildly into the soldiers, trampling. Did it do the thing again? Yeah, it did. Somewhere in here. Somewhere in here. We got to go forward. Gotta be careful. That gray band over here on the side, it'll muck everything up. Oh, we weren't there. We were in chapter 15. We're somewhere in here. Okay. There we go. 155. The beast plunged wildly into the soldiers, trampling and scattering them, but many managed yet to meet the robbers, and the desperate hand-to-hand fighting was recommenced. Grab my Discord. You're such a pain. Robin bade the others cease. The 4 of them peered out of their cover. Close that. Close that. There we go. Grab my pictures. Aw, the bone collar. Thanks,
The
Bone.
Bone Collar just
5 months.
subscribed for
You
5
and
months.
Curious both. I can't believe you guys have been listening to me ramble for 5 months. You poor men. Okay. Here we go. Robin bade the others cease. The four of them peered out over the cover over the crest. Yeah. The four of them peered from out of their cover over the crest and watched breathlessly. Carfax had fallen from his horse and lay floundering on the close grass. Stuteley sped a goose shaft into his forearm ere Robin could check him. Warrenton drew his master's attention and anger away from his esquire by a quick whisper. See, lording, quick! Look how some of the enemy do creep about Master Will. They will strike him and his fellows from the rear. The two who lead them are not uniformed. Like as not they are those treacherous ones whom I have such cause to remember. So muttered Robin, with parted lips and gasping his words disjointedly. Smite them, Warrenton, cried he, suddenly and excitedly, speedily, instantly, or they will end this fight against us now. Their arrows flew together, marvelous shots, each finding its prey. The two wretches threw up their arms as they ran, and uttering dismal cries, fell upon the earth, and in their death struggles tore up vain handfuls of the soil. Follow, follow, called Robin to his three faithful ones. Locksley, a Locksley, to the rescue! They tumbled headlong down the slope, shouting vociferously as they came. The soldiers, alarmed and already disheartened, imagined that these eager enemies were but forerunners of a large reinforcement. Hastily they disengaged themselves from the outlaws, and gathering up Master Carfax, rushed pell-mell with him backward to the woods on the right. Before I get too far, I wanted to pull up this image here. So Robin Hood and his companions lend aid to Will of the Green from ambush. So we have Warrenton and Will probably holding their bows right there, the long bows. The arrows flew together, marvelous shots each. So this scene is from when they're killing Micah and the other fellow that were the betrayers of Will of the Green. Man, N.C. Wythe did just slayed, honestly. Look at the amount of dappled lighting through the tree leaves on the ground. Like that's on it's on the side of the tree, it's on that tree, the rocky outcropping. And you can tell that this is like a peak, right? The on either side of it is the valley behind them with the river, and the valley below being where the battle ensued. Just such a good job. Let's see. All right. Will of the Green, a few men hurried. Will of the Green, yeah, okay. Will of the Green's few men hurried them with their arrows, and soon as Robin had come down to level ground, he fell to streaming his shafts into the rout. He was bruised, begrimed, and cut about his face by the thorns and rocks, yet was so furious against Master Simeon and his myrmidons, myrmidonese, myrmidonese, so furious against Master Simeon and his myrmidons that these things were not even felt by him, shouting, Locksley, Locksley! More and more triumphantly he ran alone in fierce pursuit. The soldiers disappeared under the trees and ran even then. Warrenton and the outlaws came on in support of young Robin, and the defeat of Carfax and his men was completed. They were chased through the woods of Barnesdale, which these wild outlaws knew so well. Some were shot with arrows more mercifully, others fell under the cruel blows of the outlaws' short axes. A few escaped with Master Carfax back to the Sheriff of Nottingham, not 1/3 of those who had set out at his command. It was the most desperate of affairs, yet betwixt the Greenwood men and these representing law and order as conceived by the sheriff, on either side many were killed. The outlaw band was reduced in numbers, and its leader, Will of the Green, was amongst those who were to plot and fight no more in Sherwood. When Robin and the rest of them returned from their long chase, tired with an immense fatigue, they found sad work still before them. Robin tended Will himself, and bound up his many wounds, and sought to beguile him to live. But to spite Monsieur, if but to spite Monsieur and his wretches, but Will the Green had been pierced too dreadfully by his enemy's darts. He had only strength to drink a little water and say his last words to his men. In the dusk of this day he lay in Robin's arms, wizard no more, and asked that someone should give the call he knew so well, the strange, short signal upon the horn which ever had rallied these men. Then, as they, with dejected faces, drew nigh to him, he spoke to them all, bidding them hate the laws and defy them so long as they were unjust and harsh. He counseled them to choose amongst themselves a new leader, one who could be impartial and honest, and the one who could bend the best bow. Be not robbers to any who are poor and who are good fellows, having only their property against them, their having only their poverty against them. Be kind to those who would help you, but exact toll, as heretofore, of all who come through the greenwood, the rich to pay in money and blood if it be necessary. He added these words with an effort, and his mind wandered in the shadowy fields of death. Robin saw how his fingers twitched, as if they plucked still the cord of his good yew bow. He smoothed back Will's dark hair from off his brow, and put water to the outlaw's lips. Will the Green glanced up at him, and something of his old expression, half grim, half smiling, showed that he struggled still to hold hands with life. For you, Locksley, he muttered, puckering his brows, there are two roads open. One, to yield thyself to Monsieur and the rack, for not even your uncle at Gamewell should save you, even did he so wish. The other, to join with these honest fellows and live a free life. What else is left to you? If you would be as dutiful to the laws as the earth to summer sun, it should not avail you. Your lord the sheriff is in the hands of his girl, and she listens with willing ear to Master Carfax. Ask not how I know these things, your cousin is outlawed. I shall live in the greenwood, Will, answered Robin quietly, with your brave men and you, if so be I may, have I won now the freedom of the forest. He showed him the broken peacocked arrow which the Kirk of Copenhurst had given him. The outlaw held up his right hand and laid it on Robin's bowed head. Upon you, Robin of Locksley, do I bestow with this my last breath full freedom of the forest of England, he said very loudly. Then he relaxed from his frown to a rare smile. Learn this sign, he said, and showed Robin with feeble fingers how the greenwood men knew each other in any disguise. It was a simple signal, very easy to know, yet very sure. No one might suppose it given by accident, yet of design it appeared quite innocent. The smile was fading from Will's face as Robin repeated it carefully after him, and even as he spoke again he died. Farewell, friends all, take this brother into your good company, and make him and those with him right welcome. I pray you to remember and abide by those kindly rules which have always, and his speech fell away into meaningless words, and the light left his face. He moved in Robin's arms and sighed. Then, as his body rolled slowly over and he lay with his back turned to them, they saw that his worst wound was in it. A dastard's blow. So ended the life of Will o' the Green, or Will of Cloudsley, he of whom many stories have been told in other books. They took him up reverently and buried him in a secret place, so that none to this day can say where he lies, and the outlaws swore an oath of vengeance against him who had so foully slain their chief. Robin guessed wisely that the mortal blow had been given by one of those two traitors in Will's own camp. Had they not been riding with Carfax in the early morn, not as prisoners of war, but as informers and spies? The next day was passed in burying the dead of both sides. The outlaws accepted Robin without question as one full welcome amongst them, and Warrenton, Stuteley, and John Barry were also given the freedom of the woods and taught the signs and Freemasonry of them. Cold. We'll pour a cold one out for Will of the Green. Moment of silence. He was a good egg, taking care of the forest and the people therein, and returning to the poor that which belonged to them in the first place. I will have to look into, as I'm rambling here, I will have to look into his history a little bit. I think Will of the Green, if there's other stories about Will of the Green, I'd be curious to see what they are and then who wrote them. Will o' the Green. Books? Question mark? Shorthand. All right. We're almost at a point where I have to do an ad. I will try and snooze it for a little bit longer. We'll finish this chapter and then we'll go on break after. All right, so the bodies of the soldiers and mercenaries were stripped and heaped together into a pit, and roughly covered with earth and leaves. Then the outlaws betook themselves to their caves to settle who should be chief of the band in Will's place. Whilst they were employed in this difficult business, the sheriff sent out another and larger body of armed men, obeying the insolent command of his prince. Fear sat upon the soul of Monsieur then, for he did not doubt that another such disaster as that which had chanced to his other men would mean disgrace and the end of his lord Shrievalty? Shrievalty? Shrievalty. Shrievalty. An office term or jurisdiction of a sheriff. Huh. Interesting. End of his Lord Shrievalty. Huh. So the prince would take away him being sheriff. That wouldn't be good for Monsieur, would it? All right. Where were we? There. This second company, who was captained by Hubert the archer, with Bandage, Carfax in second command, had an easy conquest, however, of Sherwood and Barnesdale, for none challenged them, nor questioned their proceedings in any respect. Nor was there a sign left in the woods of Robin or the outlaws. They were vanished, so utterly that Carfax conceived them all to have either died of their wounds or fled disconsolate from the neighborhood. In either event, this was most excellent news. Oop. Huh. OBS is being weird. Brave, brave, brave Sir Robin. Oh, man. I should watch that movie again one of these days. I'm gonna have to. It would be good. All right. In either event, this was most excellent news, and having patrolled the forest and searched it indifferently well, the men-at-arms of Nottingham agreed that peace-loving folk had no more to fear from the wild spirits of Sherwood. They were gone, banished, and the king's forest was now safe of passage to all. Carfax, poking here and there, found the fresh grave of his own fellows, and disturbed it mightily. He bade Hubert disinter them all, and pretended to recognize each one. Here was the arch-rebel Will of Cloudsley, This one was the second man of his band. Here was young Robin Fitzooth, as dead as mutton, and here was his fellow Stuteley. So Master Simeon went on, to his own satisfaction and to Hubert's, who foresaw large rewards to be paid for these poor, dishonoured bodies. They brought 3 of them back, with every circumstance of importance. They were shown to the prince as being the last remains of Will Cloudsley, Robin Fitzooth, and Hall the Outlaw, a well-known marauder in Will's company. Hi, Devi. Prince John forthwith praised the pikemen and archers, and bade Montsu give them great rewards, a thing which vexed the mean sheriff much. Then they all rode about and through the forest in a great hunt of the royal deer, graciously attended by the prince himself. Montsu was forgiven, and Simeon, having quite recovered all his old self-esteem, was duty betrothed to Demoiselle Marie. A new ranger was appointed at Locksley, and another house was found for him. No one said him nay. A proclamation against all outlaws and freebooters having been issued and signed with many flourishes by John, he betook his royal person to York, carrying lean-faced, smiling Carfax with him. Mistress Montsu hid her sorrow and devoted her energies forthwith towards the undoing of the maid Fitzwalter, against whom she yet nursed much spite. The prince stayed at Gamewell on his way, and patronized indulgently old George Montfichet, although the latter's dislike of his royal guest was only too thinly veiled. Then John took farewell of Nottingham and Sherwood, making an easy business of it. Montsu had ridden out on this morning to make dutiful obeisance. Obeisance, and escort the prince through Locksley to the borders. Outside the gates of Gamewell, John delivered himself to the men-at-arms, retainers, and burgesses, and citizens of Nottingham, who had inquisitively followed the sheriff. "We will not forget your hospitality, friends all," said he, in his slightly swaggering and yet withal effeminate way. "And see, in some measure of return for it, we leave you our Sherwood free from pestilent robbers and evil defiers of the law. When we came to Nottingham, there were these and others, but now they are all driven out of our royal forest. Many slain with the arrows of my Hubert, or beaten with the staves of your own fellows. This surely is some sort of gift. See to it that you keep well that which we have secured for you." Then he rode forth amid the cheerings of the crowd, Hubert and his followers scattering largesses as they rode. Is that largesses? It still sounds weird. Largesse. Oh, okay. Scattering largesses as they rode, which it didn't actually say there in the definition, which I think is kind of funny. Maybe, here it's down below. A generous bestowal of gifts. A generous gift or gifts such as money. In this context, I'm saying it's going to assume it's money. And generously or liberality. Liberality? Too many new words. All right. We are at chapter 16, and I am out of snoozes, so we're going to have to do a quick ad break. Hi, Mr. Bear, welcome in. So we'll go ahead and do that ad break, and then when we come back, we'll read about another hour's worth of content. Luckily, we're able to get by with only the one ad. So, to all of you wonderful listeners, my Librophiles, and if you're not familiar with what a Librophile is, it means someone who enjoys libraries and stories. So, enjoy. I will be right back. I'm going to do a quick bathroom break, refill my water, and then when I return, we'll start with chapter 16. So, BRB. Okay, and we return. Excellent. All right. So hopefully we'll be able to get through the next hour and then some without any issue. All right, so we were starting with chapter 16. So let's see, that was chapter started with. I like to mark the 12 and where we stop. Nobody knows. Somewhere in the next hour. So as a friendly reminder, if you haven't been listening long, hi, I'm Vexing Cat. Be sure to take care of yourselves, hydrate, caffeinate, grab a snack, do whatever it is that you need to to relax and enjoy the story. And if you're not familiar with the stories, we are reading Paul Creswick's version, which was 1917 edition of Robin Hood and His Adventures. So, a little caffeination. Also, a quick thank you, Valis, for 9 months of listening to stories. I still can't believe it's been like, I don't know. It's just been going really, really well. My 1 year affiliate anniversary is coming up in November, and I need to figure out what I'm doing as an independent. Aw, thank you. Magnetically motivated. Yes, the head pats. Thank you very much. Um, I need to figure out how to do something that to celebrate it, you know? I know a couple of other streamers that have debuts and renewals in September and October. Um, yeah, it's gonna be a busy time in the fall, which will be good. I started streaming in October of last year, and I made affiliate in November, and I figure give myself a little breathing room before I and opt for the 1 year affiliate anniversary. Um, because I think if I went off of my other, like when I started streaming anniversary, I'd get confused. I think that was like October 4th or some such. But yeah, let's get cooking with chapter 16, and we'll probably be able to get through. I'm imagining at least 2 more chapters. Simon says 5678. What
Simon
a
underscore
name!
says
Well, hello, Simon. Or do you prefer
5,678
Simon
just
Says?
followed.
Feel free to let me know there in the stream chat. Um, but yeah, we'll get started on chapter 16. All through the long winter, Robin had lain hidden in the Barnsdale caves with the remains of the band of outlaws which had begun with Will of Cloudsley's advent and nigh ended with his death. At first there had been some quarrelling and jealousy amongst them as to who should be the new captain. There were with Robin and his 3 recruits 22 men all told. These had decided upon many tests between themselves in order to settle who should lead, and when there were tests of archery, Robin had beaten them all. Yet he had no wish to set himself at their head, having sped his arrows so well, more for the reason that a good bowman cannot but aim well when his fingers are upon his weapon. Simply Simon is fine. All right, Simon, I'll remember. So he had said modestly that they must reckon without him, and that he would gladly obey the man the others should choose. Then there had been fresh bickerings, and they were once nearly discovered by the sheriff's foresters, who by some means stumbled upon one of their underground passages. The winter brought with it many privations, and they decided at length to leave Barnsdale and go into the county of Lincoln. They made their ragged clothes as much like those of the king's foresters as they could, and then set out. One thing had been agreed on, that they must have some new clothes and induce other bold spirits to join with them, else Sherwood would be lost to them forever. Fair enough. My little brain. Do 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 do. Okay. Grab that. Okay. Brain. Robin had quite decided to cast his lot with these men. He felt that they would be loyal to each other, and he knew that the only traitors which this band had known were now no more. A bitter hatred of the sheriff, of lying Carfax, and of royalty, as personified by the unjust, indolent prince, had molded Robin's character into steel, as it were. Robin had counseled this journey to Lincoln. In the secret caves about Barnesdale, Will of Cloudsley had amassed and stored away much wealth. It was useless to them here in Nottingham, but in Lincoln one of them might go in to the market and buy sufficient Lincoln cloth and needles and thread to fit them all out. Swords might also be obtained, and some shirts of chainmail, new bows, and new arrows. The band started away under cover of a crisp February night, and had come into sight of Lincoln within 3 days. They had just finished their morning meal of the third day when they were overtaken by a stoutish man whose clothing was of the most remarkable description. He wore a cloak which was so clouded and patched that the first part of it hung about him in a dozen folds. He had on his head 3 hats, one rammed tightly over the other, so that he cared neither for wind nor rain. On his back was a bag held by a thong of strong leather about his neck. In his right hand was a long, crooked stick. The outlaws had naturally hidden themselves at first sound of his footsteps. They watched him go by, and passed jests between themselves concerning him. Stuteley begged that he might be allowed to play a joke upon the fellow. Go after him by all means, if you will, said Robin, but be polite, for I have it in my mind that this is a man known to me. I would that I could hear him speak. Would okay. Follow me, master, warily, and you shall hear him speak to a purpose, cried little Stuteley. When the stranger found that someone walked behind him, he quickened his pace. Stuteley called out to him, but he made no reply. When the stranger found that someone walked behind him, stand as I bid you, fellow, cried little Stuteley again, for you shall tarry and speak to me. By my troth, said the other, answering him at last, I have no leisure for talk with you, friend. 'Tis very far to my lodging, and the morning grows. Therefore I will lose my dinner if I do not hasten. I have had no meat nor bread betwixt my lips this day, retorted Will Stuteley, coming up with him, and I do not know where I may get any, for if I go to a tavern they will ask me for money, of which I have not one groat, unless you will lend me some until we do meet again. The clouded man replied very peevishly, I have no money to lend you, friend, for I have lost the little I had in a foolish wager made at Nottingham. But you are a younger man than I, though you seem to be more lazy. So I can promise you a long fast if you wait until you have money from me. Now, something in the man's tones roused memories in little Stuteley, yet he could not resolve them into shape. The fellow's face was so obscured by the 3 hats that one could scarcely get a peep at it. Since we have met this day, said Stuteley wrathfully, I will have money of you, even though it be but 1 penny. Therefore, lay aside your cloak and the bag about your neck, or I will tear it open. And should you offer to make any noise, my arrow shall pierce the fat body like unto a colander. Huh. Instead of colander, it's a colander. The man laughed discordantly, and again Stuteley thought he recognized him. Do you think, friend, that I have any fear of your arrows? Stand away, or I shall beat you into grist. Stuteley bent his bow and set an arrow upon the cord, but not so quickly as to save himself from a mighty thwack from the man's cudgel. The little esquire sprang back, and in doing so dropped both bow and arrow. Nothing dismayed, he drew his sword and engaged at once with the stranger. Their blows fell about each other's bodies like hail, and Stuteley found that not all his Cumberland tricks could help him with so furious an opponent. His enemy had little skill, but plenty of strength and agility. His stick whirled and twirled, beating down Stuteley's guard time after time. He was, besides, a bigger man and much older. Robin's esquire began to see that he had met a sturdy opponent, and even as this tardy knowledge came into his mind, the stranger gave him a crushing body blow, and he tumbled fairly to the ground. There Stuteley lay, with closed eyes and white face. "'Tis a pity to rest so soon, friend," remarked the stranger, with irony. "Would it not be better to snatch my money from me and take your ease afterwards in that tavern which you wot of?" Stuteley answered nothing, but lay deadly still. Robin and the rest were too far behind to perceive what had happened. The strange-looking man turned away without bestowing another glance on this little enemy, and soon his quaint figure disappeared over the brow of the next hill. Within a dozen minutes, the outlaws came up and discovered poor Will Stuteley lying on the ground, faintly moaning. They bathed his head, but could find no wounds. Robin was much upset, and began to eagerly question his esquire so soon as he showed signs of returning to his wits. "Tell me, little Will, what evil mischance has fallen to you?" asked Robin with emotion. Stuteley raised his head and looked about him in a dazed manner. "I have been all through the county of Cumberland, master," said he, at last in a weak voice, "and I have wrestled and fenced with many, yet never since I was a child and under my father's hand have I been so put to it." He shut his eyes again, then opened them viciously. "I encountered with our fellow traveler and saw no reason to fear such a clown, yet he has scratched my back so heartily that I do fear it never will be straight again." "Nay, nay, Will, I'll nurse you well, be sure on't," murmured Robin, full of pity and despair. "Dear master, I speak but as I feel," continued Stuteley, half shutting his eyes. "But the rascal has not gone far from us, and were some of you to hasten, doubtless he would be brought to book, and I might see him punished ere I die." That's a little excessive, don't you think, Stuteley? "Go, you, old Warrenton, you are a stubborn fighter, and take John Barry and two of the rest." "I'll even fetch him to you myself, Malapert," said Warrenton. "He is more deadly than your lady in yellow, I promise you," said Stuteley. "Be wary, and let at least 6 of you surround him." "That would be wasting the time of 5 of us," answered old Warrenton in an offhand way. "I will go alone." "Let someone then prepare bandages for our Warrenton, and take my shirt for them. He will need such service." Warrenton and Barry, with another, ran off at this. Robin saw that Stuteley was not so near his end as he affected to imagine, and made him more comfortable beneath a tree, covered him with a cloak, gave him some drink, and ministered to him considerately. The old man-at-arms, fully intended to capture their quarry alone, feeling to be on his mettle as it were, so he ran as fast as he could before the other two, but not so fast as to catch up with the man he sought. Presently he espied him far down the road, and knowing a shorter path to Lincoln, whither he judged the man was bound, Warrenton called to the others, and they struck away from the road. They made their plans as they walked, and at length cut off the enemy. He did not look so formidable as Stuteley had painted him, and as he drew near, they felt this was an easy business. 2 of them sprang out upon him, and one, seizing his twisted stick, dragged it violently out of his hands. Warrenton flashed a dagger at his breast, saying sinisterly, "Friend, if you utter any alarm, I will be your confessor and hangman. Come back with us forthwith, and you may end your fight properly with our companion. He waits greedily for you." "Give me the chance," answered the fellow valiantly, "and I will fight with you all." Barry and the other outlaw instantly gave him the frog's march backward along the road, but the villain struggled so fiercely that they presently began to tire. Now grant me my life, said the prisoner, and I will give you good money to the sum of 100 pieces. It is all my savings, which I promise to give into the hands of a wicked usurer in Lincoln. Well, said Barry, pausing, this is a fair sum, and might heal our companion's wounds very comfortably. Hold him fast, comrades, whilst I go back for his staff. Without that he cannot do much harm. Whilst he was gone, the fellow began again. I am a miller, friends, said he, much more at ease already, and have but lately returned from doing a good bargain in wheat. Also, I am esteemed a fair archer, and since I perceive that you are foresters all, this matter will tell with you in my favor. I could draw you a pretty bow, had I but the use of my arms. Nay, master miller, but we would sooner hold you tight, and take your skill for granted, answered the outlaw. Barry came back and stuck the staff into the ground at a little distance. Now count out your pieces, miller, said Warrenton. There was a keen wind blowing, and the miller turned about so as not to face it directly. They gave him half freedom. Warrenton said gruffly to him, Count, miller, count truly and honestly. Let me open my bag, then, said the rogue. He unfastened it from his neck, and setting it on the ground, took off his patched cloak. He placed his bag carefully upon it, holding the bag as though it were heavy indeed. Then he crouched down over it and fumbled at the leathern at the leathern thong. The outlaws had gathered closely before him as he plunged in his fingers. In the bag were two pecks of fine meal, and as soon as the cunning miller had filled his hands full, he suddenly drew them out and dashed the white powder fair into the eager faces of the men about him. Then he snatched up the bag with the two corners, shook out the rest of the meal. It blew in blinding cloud about Warrenton and the rest, and filled their eyes so utterly as to leave them all three at the miller's mercy. He caught up his stick and began to belabor them soundly. I can just imagine him just beating them with his cudgel. Oh no. He caught up his stick and began to belabor them soundly. Since I have dirtied your clothes, friends, cried he between the blows, 'tis only right that I should dust them for you. Here are my 100 pieces. How like you them? Each word was accompanied by a tremendous thwack. He fell so heartily into the business as to become unwary. Robin and the rest, hearing the shouting and noise, came speeding down the road. With Stuteley recovered already, they chanced on a strange sight. Barry, old Warrenton, and the outlaw were dancing about in an agony of rage, helpless and blind and striking vain blows at empty air. The man with the 3 hats was belaboring them with his staff so thoroughly as to have become a man with no hat at all. They all were tumbled upon the road. Why all this haste? Roared he, not noticing Robin or the others. Why will you not tarry for my money? 'Tis strange that no man will wait upon me this day, whilst I am in so generous a mood. He sprang up and down, whacking them without cease. His feet encountered one of his many hats and ruthlessly kicked it aside. "'Tis Much the miller," cried Robin, recognizing him by his voice. "'Tis the miller who helped to save me in Sherwood. Friend, you have never yet paid me my guinea, and I now do claim it of you." Master Much ceased his occupation. He turned warily about to Robin. So soon as he had looked well at him, he dropped his stick and came over very frankly to him. "So it's the gypsy," said he, grinning all over his broad face. "And they have neither flayed you nor hanged you yet, and are these fellows with you?" "We are the free men of Sherwood," said Robin, "and we're coming to Lincoln to get ourselves new clothes and weapons. Also, we had hoped to find other good men and true willing to join with us." Much went up to Stuteley, and craved his pardon very handsomely at this. "Had I but looked at you, friend, I might have known you for the other gypsy, and these fellows for some of those who did save you both from Master Carfax. That is always my way, but never have I been so sorry for it as on this day, for now, through being too hasty, I have lost your goodwill." Much the miller is quite the specimen, apparently. Ah, my goodness. Nay, Master Miller, but that is not so, said Stuteley. Warrenton and Barry at first were inclined to play with the miller as he had with them, but Robin pleaded so well for good fellowship that, after a little, peace was proclaimed. Much to atone for his misdeeds, undertook to do their business in Lincoln, and set himself busily to work on their behalf. He stood he found them all comfortable in quiet quarters where they might stay unnoticed and unmolested, and Stuteley went with Robin to buy the clothes for their suits. They stayed in and about the old town for nearly 3 weeks until all were well equipped. Much asked that he might join with them and bring his friend Midge and a few other merry souls. Robin explained to him that they had rules, which although few and simple were strict, and that they had at present no especial leader, since all had elected to remain equal and free, observing the same laws and pledged to each other in loyalty unto death. A common bond of independence bound them. Why, then, master, we are your men, said Much, for we are all sick to death of the Normans and their high-handed ways, to tell truth, and right gladly we will take service with you. I am not the first or only man of our company, began Robin, smiling, but hasty Much interrupted him with a great oath. You shall be my captain, Gypsy, I promise you, and captain of us all, captain of us okay, and captain of us Lincoln men, for you did beat me in archery before the prince, so I am bound to own you as master. Here is my hand on it, and Midge's too. Come hither, Midge, and swear fealty to Robin of Locksley. Robin recognized Midge for the ferret-faced man who had been with Much at the tourney. Both insisted on paying over to Stuteley the amount of the wager lost by them on that day. The outlaws returned to Sherwood well satisfied, and at Barnesdale went on perfecting their plans and adding to their numbers. The day came at length for them to announce themselves. Dun dun dun. Wild. It's getting wild up in here. Let's see. Yes. All right, we are between chapters. I'm going to drink a little bit of water because, hydration. It's important. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Oh, my goodness. do, 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 do. There we go. do, 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 do. All right. Big stretch. Mm. Yep. Big one. Very big. Oh. Whew. Okay. Refreshed and renewed, and more chapters to come. Let's see. We are on to chapter 17. One bright morning in May, a slim, straight youth, slightly bearded, dressed in a green suit, with bow unstrung and a fresh color blowing on his cheeks, came out of the wood upon the high road of Copemanhurst. He stood erect, quietly alert, and with his brown eyes watchful of the road. He then moved softly along the road until he came to where, but last year, the brook had sprawled and scrambled across it. Now a fine stone bridge had been built. At the word of Prince John, who had complained much at having wetted his feet when he had passed by St. Dunstan's shrine 8 months agone, the stranger smiled as he looked at the bridge, half sadly, half in reverie. He paused to admire the neat work, then slowly walked over the bridge, still thinking deeply. Suddenly, he plumped himself right into the arms of a tall, ungainly man who had crossed from the other side. The youth sprang back, then planted his lithe body exactly in the center of the bridge. Give way, fellow, roared the other instantly. Make room for your betters, or I will throw you into the brook. The younger man laughed. I know this little stream right well, friend, therefore I have no need to make that closer acquaintance of it which you promise. You may be acquainted and yet make better acquaintance, returned his big opponent, stirring not an inch. This bridge is too narrow for us both. One must go back. Go back then, friend, by all means, I will not stay you. Now will I trounce you right well, stripling, cried the tall man, grasping his cudgel. He made a pass or two with it about the head of the youth. The latter jumped back and fitted an arrow to his bow. Nay, but my body, but this is ungenerous of you. Forester, cried the tall man. I have only a stick and you have a bow. If we are to fight, surely you might fight fairly. After drawing his cudgel and swinging it at the boy. My goodness. Audacity. Cut yourself a longer cudgel, friend, retorted the big fellow. The youth threw down his bow and, opening a knife which hung at his waist, went forthwith towards the nearest bush. He cut himself a stout ash staff and fell to trimming it deftly. When it was complete, he came coolly up to his foe. Make ready, friend. And he, giving his cudgel a twirl, now take tune from me. 1, 2, 3, roared the giant, smiting at him instantly. Welcome in, Karatsun. Aw, Chise, that is a really cute emote. Super cute. The fight was a long one, for the youth had such skill and so ready a guard that the other but wasted his anger on him. This stripling jumped from one side to the other so lightly and unexpectedly, and parried each thrust so surely that presently the giant relaxed a little from the fury of his onslaught. Then the youth ran in and gave him such a crack as to make the welkin ring. By my life, but you can hit hard, cried the giant, dropping his stick that he might rub his pate. For so small a man, that was a right hearty blow. He picked up his stick again. Fall to, Spitfire, I am ready. They sparred for a minute longer, and then the giant had his chance. He caught the thumping youth so sound a thwack as to send him flying over the low parapet of the bridge far into the bubbling brook. How now, Spitfire, have you had enough? Marry, that I have, sputtered his antagonist, trying to scramble out of the rushing water. Then he became dizzy again and fell back with a cry. The big man vaulted down to his help and plucked his foe to the bank. There he laid him down on the grassy sward and fell to bathing his brows with handfuls of fresh water till the youth opened his eyes again. Friend, said the stripling gravely, sitting up, you dealt me that blow most skilfully. Tell me your name. Why, said the giant a little awkwardly, as for the blow, 'twas but an undercut, that I know well. My name is John Little Naylor. You are anything but little, friend, answered the youth, struggling to his feet, and now I will give you my name also. He put a horn to his lips as at this, and blew a strange, shrill note. Forthwith the greenwood was alive with men, all dressed in grass-colored clothes like the youth's. They swarmed about him, full 210 of them. One of them, a little man, having eyed the stranger askance, gave a signal to the others to seize him, but the youth forbade this. The fight was a fair one, friends, and the right of this bridge belongs for the moment to Master John Little Naylor. Take your rights, friend, he went on, turning to the giant, and go upon your way. In a matter, stripling, you have now the better of this adventure, and yet do forbear, returned Master Naylor. Wherefore I like you well, and would ask again your name. Tell him, Will, commanded the youth. The little man, stepping up to the giant impudently, then announced his master. Know, fellow, that this is none other than a dead man, a wraith indeed. At least so saith Master Monceux, the Lord Sheriff of Nottingham. This is Robin Fitzooth. Then I am right sorry that I beat you, answered Master Naylor. And had I known you at first, your head would now be whole and your body unbruised, by my inches. But I would like to join with you and your company. Enter our company, then, John Little, and be welcome. The rights are few, but the fee is large, for we shall ask answering loyalty of you, and you must give a bond that you will be faithful even unto death. I give the bond with all my soul and on my very life, cried the tall man. Master, said the little man, who was not other than our friend Stuteley, surely we cannot consent to welcome this fellow amongst us having such a name. Harkye, John Little, he continued, turning to the giant, take your new name for me, since you are to be of our brotherhood. I christen you Little John. At this small jest, the merry men laughed long and loud. Give him a bow and find a full sheath for our friend Little John Warrenton, said Robin, joyfully. And hurry, friends, for surely it is the moment when our first new defiance of Master Monceux is to be made. Pull back into the woods speedily, and bide my signal. Little John, we now will try you. Stand out on the bridge path you have just won from me, and parley with those who are coming along the road from York. Speak loudly, that I may hear what answers you with. That I may hear what answers you win. He gave a signal, and at once all disappeared even as they had come, swiftly and silently. Warrenton and Stuteley placed themselves low down behind bushes of white thorn. Warrenton, who had given his quiver to Little John, now produced a great bag from under a bush, and took out of it a dozen or more long smocks, such as shepherds wear. Hastily Robin and Stuteley attired themselves as hinds, and the old retainer gave them each a crook to hold. He explored again his stores under the bushes and dragged out a fat buck, freshly killed and ready spitted for the fire. Robin and those of the freemen, who were now attired in this simple garb, helped to pull the deer to the edge of the road, and hastily making a fire, they soon had their meat cooking merrily. Little John eyed them askew, but made no offer to question them. He had recognized Robin by a sign which the other had given to him. Meanwhile, the noise of a small company nearing them became more evident, and presently 7 horsemen turned a bend of the road. Their leader was a stout and haughty-looking man clothed in episcopal garments, and so, soon as he spied these shepherds, he spurred his horse until he came level with them. Then he drew bridle sharply, and addressed himself to Little John. "Who are these, fellow, that make so free with the king's deer?" he asked, mildly, as one who wishes first to believe the best of every man. "These are shepherds, excellence," answered Little John. "Heaven have mercy, they seem more like to be robbers of the greenwood at first glance," said the priest. "One must not judge on half hearing or half seeing, lording," retorted Little John. "That is true, but I would question you further, good man. Tell me now, who has killed this deer, and by what right?" His tones had passed insensibly to an arrogant note. "Give me first your name, excellence, so that I may know I speak where 'tis fitting," said Little John stubbornly. "This is my lord the Bishop of Hereford. Hereford? Hereford, I think. This is my lord the Bishop of Hereford, fellow," said one of the guards fiercely. "Keep a civil tongue in your head, or 'twill surely be bad for you." "Oh my goodness! Lasada! Hello, Valkyrie? Oh, that's a good name. Valkyrie, I like that. That's really cool. My goodness. Welcome in, Raiders. Get left on, nerd. I love it. Aw. Oh my goodness. Non-screen celebration. Look at that with the raid. All of the little raiders. Little raid emotes. It is. It is a cozy stream. For context, since I'm sure some of you have not seen my content before, hello, welcome in. I am Vexencat. I am a retro tiger librarian. I read classic literature and poetry. Welcome to my library. Occasionally, I do play various video games and do a little bit of other variety. And I just got some new PNGs recently that will let me do even more content and um, collaborations in the future. But Valkyrie, this is your group of folks. Thank you for sharing your community with me. I hope that you're able to take care of yourself. Grab some water, grab a snack, do what you ever need to. Bill Nye, the science guy. Bill. Oh man, that takes me back. Um, if you need to take a break, I completely understand. I really appreciate you dropping in with your folks. That's really kind of you. Thank you. Um, let's see. My train of thought has completely been obliterated, as is the case, and usually. Um, go over here, grab this. One thing I noticed is that when somebody raids me, there is supposed to be
Mommy?
a
Sorry.
raid alert.
Mommy?
It doesn't seem
Sorry.
to be
Valkyrie
playing,
just
and I don't
followed.
know what. Oh my goodness. That was both Valkyrie following. Thank you so much, and yeah. Okay. So let's see. I don't know why that should be on, but it's not playing. So typically, when someone raids, it's supposed to look like this. It's supposed to be really cute, but
Vexing
I don't
Cat
know
just
why
raided
it
with
wasn't
10
playing
viewers.
that. Heavens. We'll see. I'll have to do some more testing and figure out what's wrong. Oh, yeah, I know. It should have with the raid. I don't know why. It must be something I have set up or not set up correctly. Bless. It's just, wah, wah, I don't know. Um, settings, maybe it is stream related. Maybe I don't have something turned on that I'm supposed to. Um, hmm, wah, wah. Whatever. We're here to read a story, and that's what we'll do. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you enjoy the story. Okay, put that over here and grab that. Hmm. This is my lord, the Bishop of Hereford, fellow, said one of the guards fiercely. Keep a civil tongue in your head, or 'twill surely be bad for you. Robin now came forward. My lord, said he, bowing his curly head before the bishop, I did hear your questions, and I will answer them in all truth. We are but simple shepherds, and tend our flocks year in and year out about the forest of Sherwood. But, this being our holiday, we thought there would be small harm in holding it upon one of the king's deer, since there are so many. You are saucy fellows, in sooth, cried the bishop, and the king shall know of your doings. Quit your roast,
Smab just
and come with
followed.
me, for I shall bring you to the sheriff of Nottingham forthwith. Seize this knave, men, and bind his hands. Oh, thank you, Smob, for the follow. Your pardon, excellence. No pardon shall you have of me, rascal, snapped the stout bishop. Seize him, my men. Robin flew upon his horn a shrill, short note, and at once his freemen sprang out from behind the thorn bushes and flung themselves on the bishop's guard. The good bishop found himself a prisoner, and began to crave indulgence of the men he had been so ready to upbraid. Nay, we shall grant you no pardon, by my beard, said Little John fiercely. Lend me that sword, friend, he added, turning to Stuteley, who had taken the weapon from one of the bishop's guards. Right skilfully will I make this church to be without a head. There shall be no shedding of blood, cried Robin, interposing, where I can stay it. Come, friends, and these fellows unto Nottingham with their legs tied under their horses' bellies. But my lord the Bishop of Hereford shall come with us unto Barnesdale. The unwilling prelate was dragged away, cheek by jowl, with the half-cooked venison on the back of his own horse, and Robin and the band brought their guest to Barnesdale. As soon as dusk had passed, they lighted a great fire in the centre of the little hill-bordered glade, and fell to roasting the deer afresh. Another and fatter beast was set to frizzle upon the other side of the fire, and as the night was chill, the men gathered close about their savory dinner. The bishop sniffed the odorous air from his place of captivity, and was nothing loth when they offered to conduct him to this fine repast. Robin bade him take the best place. For you must know, Excellence, that we freemen are all equal in each other's sight in this free land. Therefore we have no one whom we can especially appoint to do the honors such as your station warrants. Take, then, the seat at the head of our feast, and give us grace before meat as the occasion justifies. The bishop pronounced grace in the Latin tongue hastily, and then settled himself to make the best of his lot. Red wines and ales were produced and poured out, each man having a horn tankard from which to drink. Laughter bubbled among the diners, and the bishop caught himself smiling at more than one jest. Stuteley filled his beaker with good wine each time the bishop emptied it, and it was not until near midnight that their guest began to show signs that he wished to leave them. Hereford, by the way, Hereford, in two syllables, Hereford, I think, Hereford, pronunciation. Hereford. Okay, Hereford. Good to know. The more you know. And knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe. Oh dear. I wish, mine host, said he gravely to Robin, who had soberly drunk but one cup of ale, that you would now call a reckoning. 'Tis late, and I fear the cost of this entertainment may be more than my poor purse will permit to me. The other half is 50% red lasers and 50% green lasers. Okay, Lasada. Pew 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 pew. G.I. Joe. Why there, answered Robin, as if perplexed. This is a matter in which I am in your lordship's hands, for never have I played tavern keeper till now. I will take the reckoning, friend, said Little John, interposing. He went into the shade and brought out the bishop's steed, then unfastened from the saddle a small bag. Someone gave him a cloak, and spreading it upon the ground, Little John began to shake the contents of the bishop's money-bag upon it. Bright, golden pieces tumbled out and glittered in the pale moonlight, while my lord of Hereford watched with wry face. Stuteley and Warrenton counted the gold aloud. 302 pennies are there, master, cried Stuteley. Surely a good sum. 'Tis strange, said Robin musingly, but this is the very sum that I was fain to ask of our guest. Nay, nay, began the bishop hastily, this is requiting me ill indeed. Did I not deal gently with your venison, which after all is much more the king's venison than yours? Further, I am a poor man. 302 pennies. I don't think he's that poor. You are the Bishop of Hereford, said Robin, and so can well afford to give in charity this very sum. Who does not know of your hard dealings with the poor and ignorant? Have you not amassed your wealth by less open but more cruel robbery than this? Who speaks a good word for you or loves you? For all you are a bishop. You have put your heels on men's necks, and have been always an oppressor, greedy and without mercy. For all these things we take your money now to hold it in trust, and will administer it properly and in God's name. There is an end of this matter, then, unless you will lead us in song to show that a bitter spirit is come unto your body, or mayhap you would sooner trip a measure. Neither the one nor the other will I do, snarled the bishop. Robin made Stuteley a sign, and Will brought his master a harp, whereupon Robin sat himself cross-legged beside the fire and twanged forth a lively tune. Warrenton and most of the men began forthwith to dance. And Stuteley, seizing the bishop by one hand, commenced to hop up and down. Little John, laughing immoderately, grasped the luckless bishop by the other hand, and between the two of them, my lord of Hereford was forced to cut some queer capers. The moon flung their shadows fantastically upon the sward, and the more their guest struggled, the more he was compelled to jump about. Robin put heart into his playing, and laughed with the loudest of them. At last, quite exhausted, the bishop sank to the ground. Little John seized him then like a sack of wood, and flung him across the back of his horse. Rapidly they led the beast across the uneven ground until the high road was reached. The whole of the band accompanied them, shouting and jesting noisily, the Bishop of Hereford, more dead than alive, was then tied to his horse, and the animal headed for Nottingham. "'Tis the most and the least that we can do for him," said Robin gleefully. "Give you good night, lording, a fair journey to you." Oh, you know, it occurs to me one of my mods should have done this, but they didn't. Let's see. Shout out to Val Carey. 2 L's. If I spelled that correctly, it should have.
Follow it.
Oh, it's so cute!
So we're going back to our car because we went out to eat.
What was that
with
game
a couple
called?
Of friends of ours.
A lot
We
of people
left
were
them at
playing
their
that for a
car,
minute.
and we went towards our car, which was like a couple of streets away. And while we were going there, we were interviewing.
What a great game. Are you a bit of a variety streamer too, Valkyrie? I'm assuming so. I don't want to presume, but is I like a little bit of variety in all the streamers. Let's see. Valkyrie may have fallen asleep, so I'll let them rest. Okay, where was I? 'Tis the most and the least that we can do for him," said Robin gleefully. "Give you good night, lording, a fair journey to you. Deliver our respectful homage to Master Monsieur and to the rest of the law-abiding Nottingham. Come now, Little John, you have borne yourself well this day, and for my part I willingly give the right to be of this worshipful company of free men. What say you, friends all?" The giant was admitted by acclamation, and then all went back noisily into the hiding place in Barnesdale, which had defied both the ferret eyes of lean-faced Simeon Carfax and the Norman archer Hubert. The Sheriff of Nottingham learned next day that Sherwood had not been purged of its toll collectors, as he had so fondly hoped. Suck on that, Sheriff of Nottingham! As a friendly reminder between chapters, be sure to hydrate, caffeinate, stretch. I've got a couple of stretch and hydrate redeems I highly recommend. You take care of yourselves. And Valkyrie, we'll read one more chapter so you can hopefully fall asleep well. All right. We are on the last chapter for today, which will be chapter 18. Let me not note that down as the last one for today. Excellent, excellent. All right. Chapter 18. After the adventure with the good bishop, Robin and his men waited in some trepidation for a sign from Nottingham. However, several weeks passed without any untoward incident. I guess the sheriff is biding his time. The 4th week after my Lord of Hereford's despoilment, I still feel like I'm mispronouncing that. Hereford. Hereford. Despoilment, a quarrel broke out betwixt Stuteley and Little John, and these two hot-headed fellows must needs get from words to blows. In the bouts of fencing and wrestling, Little John could hold his own with all, but at quarterstaff, Stuteley could and did rap the giant's body very shrewdly. After one bout, both lost their temper, and Robin had to stay them by ordering Stuteley to cease the play. This was in the forenoon. Later on, chance threw Little John and Stuteley into a fresh dispute. It happened just before dusk. The two of them from different parts of the wood had stalked and run to earth the same stag. Little John had already drawn his bow when Stuteley espied him. At once the little esquire called out that no one had the right to shoot such a deer but Robin of Locksley, his master. Little John scoffed at this, and flew his arrow, but between them they had startled the stag, and it bounded away. Little John was furious with Stuteley, and the noise of their quarrelling brought Robin again between them. This time, young Robin spoke his mind to Little John, saying that he was sorry that Master John Little Nailor had ever come into their free band. "'Tis not free at all," cried Little John, raging. "'Tis the most galling of service. Here I may not do this nor that. I'll stay no more in Barnesdale, but try my fortunes with your foes." He flung himself away from them, and when the roll was called that night, the name of Little John evoked no response. Robin was vexed at this, and saw that they must come to some agreement if they would keep the company alive. He talked with Warrenton, and some of the others, and they all pressed him to assume the captaincy by right of his skill with the bow. They decided between them to have a full council on the morrow and come to a decision, for without a captain they were as a ship without a rudder. The early morning found Robin walking thoughtfully in the greenwood. He hoped that he might discover Little John returning to them, repentant. He had taken a strange liking to this great giant of a man. As he walked, he drew insensibly toward the high road, but had not nearly reached it when he came upon a herd of deer feeding peacefully in a glade. Robin got his bow ready. Before he could fit a shaft to it, however, one of the finest beasts fell suddenly, pierced by a clever arrow. Immediately he thought that Little John had indeed returned, and was about to emerge from his hiding place, when a handsome little page ran gleefully toward the dying buck from the other side of the glade. This was plainly the archer, and Robin, after a swift glance of surprise, moved out upon him. "How dare you shoot the king's beast, stripling?" asked Robin very severely. "I have as much right to shoot them as the king himself," answered the page haughtily, and by no means afraid. "And who are you who dares to question me?" His voice stirred Robin strangely. Yet he could fit no memory properly to it. The lad was very handsome, slim, dark-haired, and with regular features. "My name is my own," said Robin to him, "and I do not like your answering of a plain question. Keep a civil tongue in your head, boy, or you will one day be whipped." "Not by you, Forester," cried the page, pulling out a little sword. "Put up your hands, or draw your weapon. You shall have such answering now as you can understand." He flourished his point valiantly, and Robin saw nothing for it but to draw also. The page thereupon engaged him quite fiercely, but Robin soon perceived that the lad was no great master of the art of fencing. Still, he played prettily, and to end it, Robin allowed himself to be pricked on the hand. "Are you satisfied, fellow?" said the page, seeing the blood rise to the wound. "Aye, honestly," said Robin, "and now perhaps you will grant me the privilege of knowing to whom I owe this scratch." "I am Gilbert of Blois," replied the page with dignity, and again his voice troubled Robin sorely. He was certain that he had met with it before, but this name was strange to his ears. "What do you in the greenwood at such an hour, good Master Gilbert?" Oh no.
Alamanta's VT
Oh, well,
just
I
raided
guess
with
we fixed
21
whatever was
viewers.
wrong with the raid. Geezer raid. My goodness. Kairu, Mura Sensei, Almantis, welcome in. Welcome one and all. The old man took away your bedge? No way. Hi, Jules. I'm gonna fight my grandpa. I'm tired of this, Grandpa. Well, too damn bad. Welcome in, everybody. I'm reading my last chapter for today. I'll be sometime in the next 20 minutes, so you're welcome to stick around and enjoy the story. Hi. And then I'll probably raid another reader if I can find one. And if not, I'll find a nice artist and something else chill that we can all vibe with. But thank you, Manny, for sharing your community with me. I hope you're gaming today. What was it, Shipwreck something? I hope that went well for you. The bedge versus the DMs. I see. So use the wrong raid emote. Maybe you need to get one with that just says raid. Heart Space Shipbreaker. It was good. Oh, nice. For those of you not familiar, Almontis is another variety streamer. Here, let me give you a quick shout out here. As I have all of the other wonderful people that have rated me today. Let's see. Did I spell that correctly? Yep. There we go. So we should be able to watch a quick...
Do people want me to walk through it while I'm on stream? Do people want me to walk through it while I'm here? Or is that just like, it feels like I'm tooting my own horn too much? I just feel like, was it like Watch Doge not knowing about the power about this tweet is really funny though.
I have no context. But there we go. It looked like you were looking at your post from when you posted your model, that which was Sensational VT, if memory serves. I have a Sensational. I don't have it linked right now, but I have a Sensational model for a PNG. No worries. Thank you for the lurk, though. I appreciate it. That's very kind. Yep, Sensational V is another. It's Sen, I think, is what they go by on Twitch. They're an amazing artist. If you're looking for like a really unique model, I would highly recommend them. Here, let me give let me give one to it's. Wait, no, I remember now. Sen doesn't have any clips of any of his work, which I find absurd. But if you haven't checked him out before, let me grab that. Do this. I will grab Sen's Twitch link, and then you guys can check that out there if you wanted to. Yep, you got it, Manny. Go get something to eat. I'm sure you've been streaming for several hours, so be sure to get something good to eat. Okay, we are returning to the story. All right. Me. All right, we are here with Master Gilbert. Up at the top there. The lad considered his answer, whilst wiping his sword daintily with pretty kerchief. Interesting. I guess, oh, Manny was one of the ones I was keeping an eye on. So I rated myself. That's fun. Aw, thank you. The lad considered his answer whilst wiping his sword daintily with a pretty kerchief. The action brought a dim, confused memory to Robin. A blurred recollection of that scene discovered in the wizard's crystal
Drink
troubled his
water.
thoughts.
Become moist.
Fair enough. A blurred recollection of that scene discovered in the wizard's crystal troubled his thoughts. Meanwhile, the little page had condescended to glance upon him. And I will drink water. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Num 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 num. Forester, said he, somewhat awkwardly, can you tell me, do you know aught of one Robin of the Hood? Yeah. Do you know aught of one Robin of the Hood? He is believed to have been killed in the fall of last year, and truly they brought a body into Nottingham. He was a merry youth. This is brother to my Marion, cried Robin inwardly. Ay, for sure, 'tis the lad Fitzwalter and no Gilbert of Blois. Bloist? Yeah. And no Gilbert of Bloist. Yet Warrenton did not tell me that there was a brother. He replied to the page. Hey, you and I. Welcome in. He replied to the page, did not this fellow, this Robin, have other name, Robin o' the Hood? Why, all of them wear their capes and hoods nowadays. How can such a man as I know him whom you seek, to say whether he be dead or alive? Forester, he was much like to you, but had no beard, nor was he quite so uncouth as you. I mean, no offence. I saw him but twice, but he seemed a lovable fellow. I remember that some called him Robin of Locksley. I knew him right well, said Robin in decided tones. Come with me, Master Gilbert, and you shall hear of him. He lives, then? The page's blue eyes glistened happily. Did your sister send you, Master Gilbert? Asked Robin with his heart in his mouth. The boy gave him a puzzled stare. My sister? Who told you that I had a sister? Then, changing his policy with swift intuition, I, my sister did send me to find the man. Bring me to him. Follow me, Master Gilbert of Blois, cried Robin. So Marion had remembered him. It was a happy morning indeed. This poor stag, began the page, pointing to it. I wish now that I had not slain it. 'Tis one of the king's deer, observed Robin, grave again, and you may be hanged for the killing of it. What put so desperate a business into your mind, friend? I, to tell truth, had a notion to be made outlaw like unto Master Robin, in short, said the page. But I did not know that they might hang me for it. He made a grimace. Robin went up to the beast and drew out the boy's arrow. Then he stuck one of his own peacocked shafts into the wound. Now you are safe, Gilbert, said he, smiling. Take the arrow and keep it in your quiver until we can dispose of it. I leave my mark upon the buck. My fellows will find and deal with it. They walked together into Barnesdale, and Robin showed the boy their hiding place, and presented him to the rest. He asked that he might become one of their company, and all agreed. So he took the vow fervently, and was given Little John's place for the nonce. Robin asked them not to mention him by name, wishing to know more of Master Gilbert's plans ere disclosing himself. The boy was full of chatter, and had news for them too. He gave them the sequel to the bishop's adventure, and told how my lord of Hereford had come into Nottingham in parlous state. Parlous state instead of parlous. Well, let's find out. Wait. I guess. Dangerously shrewd or cunning, full of danger or risk. What is the difference between parlous and perilous? Parlous and perilous are synonyms. In fact, parlous is a shortened version or contraction of perilous that came about in the late 14th century. The more you know. So parlous means the same thing as perilous. Full of danger or risk, obsolete version of the dangerously shrewd or cunning. Ah, every day I learn something new. All right. Let's see. My lord of Hereford had come into Nottingham in parlous state, more dead than alive. How he had lain prostrate upon a sick bed in the sheriff's house for the best part of 3 days. How, having briefly recovered, he had made a full statement of his experiences, and had cursed the greenwood men with bell, book, and candle. How he had sworn that they thought to be dead. Robin of Locksley was very much alive and full of wickedness. So wicked. Master Monsieur, whom I have no cause to love, continued Gilbert in quick speech, has bidden his archers and men to assemble, and has promised a round sum for the head of each greenwood man, such as I perceive you all to be, and since I am now of your company, friends, I suppose my head is worth as much as Master Robin's or any of yours. Which of you is Robin o' the Hood? I fain would look upon a man who can recover from death so valiantly. Barry and Much were both together preparing to point to Robin, forgetting their promise. Robin gave them a quick glance of warning. Come, friends, let us to breakfast, he cried, rising. I am sharp set, and soon we shall be hearing from the sheriff's men, no doubt. Let us fortify ourselves withal. All the morning went by, however, without further event. The greenwood men became uneasy. All felt that some terrible plot was being hatched against them, and their unrest grew with the day. Had Little John turned traitor, and was he now preparing their enemies? Soon after noon, Robin called them together into the biggest of their caves. He offered to disguise himself and go into Nottingham, there to learn the best or worst. Many of them made objection to this, saying that one had no reason to take more risk than another in this free company. Robin persuaded them at last to his own way of thinking, as he had already done before. Unconsciously, they were coming to regard him as their head, although any one of them would have fiercely denied this in open council. Robin took a staff and hurried towards the high road for the second time that day. He had another reason for making this adventure, the fond hope of seeing Mistress Marian. Her brother, for so he felt sure this young Gilbert must be, had stirred afresh in Robin's heart all his warm love for her. He wondered what he could say to her. Close that. And that. Oh, I guess fair enough. Why, he could tell her of Gilbert's escapade. Of course she must be trembling at this very moment for the boy and thinking him in 1,000 dangers. It was another duty added to that to which Robin bore towards the company of free men. He doubled and trebled his pace. Suddenly, as he came upon the road, the sound of a lusty singing struck upon his ears. Lusty singing. Robin became aware of a shabby cart and a bushy figure leading a bony horse and the smell of fresh killed meat. It was an honest butcher on his way to market in Nottingham. "Give you good day, friend," called Robin to him. "You have a fair load there. What is your price for it?" "Why, truly, beggar, a bigger price than you will pay, I fear," answered the butcher in the middle of his song. "I will give you 4 pieces of gold for it," said Robin. The butcher stopped his thin horse at once. "Take the reins, then, master," cried he joyfully. "The cart and all is yours for the sum. Pay it to me, and I will go back into Locksley forthwith." "Do you come from that village, friend?" asked Robin, as he paid over the gold, "and are you not afraid to ride through Sherwood alone?" "You are strange to this country, friend," answered the jolly butcher. "Else you would know that now our Sherwood is free as air to all men. The outlaws and wicked ones have all been driven out of it." "Is this indeed so? Truly I am rejoiced at the news. And Locksley, is not the ranger there now dead, and his house burned? I do misremember his name." "Master Fitzooth is dead, and lieth in Locksley ground. Also his son, Wild Robin, is no more. He gave himself early to the outlaw band, and was slain. We have a new ranger at Locksley, one Adam of Kirklees, a worthy man, and a generous. I thank you for your gold. Now take my load, and may fortune befriend you." "God rest you, butcher," answered Robin, laughing, as the other turned on his heel and began his song once more. "Stay, stay, I have thought." Oh, wait. I think he was. "Stay, stay, I have a thought," he called out after the butcher. "How can I sell meat in this garb?" The other paused and scratched his head doubtfully. "I'll give you another piece for your clothes, friend," said Robin persuasively. "Is it a bargain?" "I'll do it for another piece," said the butcher. "Aye, and I think myself fortunate. This is a very happy day, for sure. Strip yourself, beggar, and you can hand your purse over to me with the rags if you care to." Robin laughed again and shook his head. The change was soon effected, and within 10 minutes he was leading his spavined horse toward the gates of Nottingham. In the distance he could hear the butcher's loud song losing itself in the forest sounds. He smeared his face with grease and earth and rubbed his hair awry ere daring to enter the city. Boldly he led his shuffling horse to the market and there took up his place. He had no notion of the price to ask, and the folk, finding him so foolish and easy a man, soon began to crowd about the cart. Robin gave as much for a penny as the other butchers did for 5 or 6 when his customer was poor. If he seemed to be a prosperous citizen who would buy, Robin had quite another price for him. The butchers about him could not quite understand these novel methods, but they saw with envy that the hare-brained fellow was selling all his meat. His loud voice and foolish gestures made them think him some crazy loon who had slipped off with his good man's cart. They entered into conversation with him and found his witless speech most entertaining. They had all been bidden to a supper in the sheriff's buttery. Buttery? In the sheriff's buttery that night, this being holiday time, and they begged Robin to join with them, hoping to have no little amusement from him. With a vacant stare, he agreed to eat the sheriff's mutton. All the time he had sharp eyes and long ears, but could find out nothing of the sheriff's plans, nor happen on sight of Mistress Fitzwalter. When they were sitting down to the supper in Monsieur's buttery, he perceived, towering high amongst the sheriff's servants, the figure of Master Little John. "So, friend, my visit here has not been vain," thought Robin grimly. "Now we shall see and hear things, no doubt." He settled himself to an attack upon the viands, and played his part with the sheriff's ale, not forgetting to keep up the attitude of foolishness he had adopted at in the market. The laughter grew long and loud, and presently the sheriff himself came down. He made them a speech and gave a toast. My lord of Hereford, looking very pale and limp, also came into the buttery for a space and made them a Latin grace. Then Monsieur told them with bristling eyebrows how he had been instructed by the Bishop of Hereford that the pestilent evil bands whose power had once broken had reformed in Sherwood. The sheriff restated that the reward to be given for the head of any malefactor and disturber of their laws, as ordered by Prince John, and said further that in a few days he was going to dispatch his men into and about the forest to satisfy the bishop. Whilst I am preparing my fellows, there is a chance for all honest citizens and burgesses to earn a fair sum. My lord of Hereford will add his reward to the man who shall recover his money to him, or part of it, and I will give such man freedom from all taxes and levies, added the sheriff importantly. Robin wondered whether Little John had spoken of the company. While he was eyeing darkly the burly figure of Master Naylor, the latter came over to him under a pretence of filling Robin's glass. "By my skin, Locksley," whispered the giant into his startled ear, "this is a foolish adventure. Your head is as good as off your shoulders in this place. Hasten to leave it soon as you can, for fear the bishop may know you as I have done." Robin only stared in his new half-vacant manner. Little John moved away to another part of the room. Hard questions formed themselves in Robin's mind. How had Little John known him? Stranger still, why did not my lord of Hereford recognize Master John Little Naylor? He had been foremost in the business with the bishop, Robin recollected all at once. That when the bishop had briefly come in to bless the supper, Little John had gone out hurriedly with some dishes. "Hey, Silverlink Fox, welcome in. Been a minute?" That was it, no doubt. But a mystery still remained. Robin decided to pierce it ere the night was done. Some of the guests were far gone in their cups already, and Monsieur had given over the buttery to the butchers for the night. "I'll stay here, then," decided Robin, and pretending to be suddenly overcome by the strong ale, he tumbled himself down upon the rush-strewn floor. He set up a great snoring until Little John, taking him by the heels, dragged him through the kitchen into a little larder, and there shut the door on him. "Lie there, nasty pig," cried Little John from outside with disgusted air for his fellow servants to note. "Lie there in a clean sty for once, and if you grunt again I will surely souse you under the pump." At this threat Robin's snores abated somewhat in their violence. "I would drop him into the river forthwith," spoke a harsh voice, startling Robin into fierce astonishment. There was no mistaking those tones. So cruel, so false, so malicious. Roger and Micah, Micah and Roger. One of these two villains it was of a surety. But Robin had seen them both slain on the day of that battle wherein poor Will of Cloudsley had perished. Trembling with amazement, he cautiously got upon his knees and peeped through the keyhole in the flagged kitchen. Amidst the reek of hot foods and disordered dishes were two men, one of them Little John. The other was dressed as a cook, and as he turned his face towards the light of the fire, Robin knew him for one of the two traitor outlaws. He had changed little. Little John answered his remark over his shoulder. "You would do many a rash thing, Roger, if you could," was all he said, but he spoke in sneering tone. "Aye, marry, and one thing I would do right instantly, dear gossip," said Roger, busying himself with the dishes. Robin saw that they shone like gold in the ruddy light of the fire. "I would not have you as a helpmate in the kitchen, had I the ordering of matters. Big hands, and heavy hands, and thieving hands. Ah, I need not be wizard to know them when I see them." "You shall feel them, little Roger," said Little John, very angry, and he soundly cuffed the cook about the head. Roger snarlingly drew back and snatched up a dish. Full viciously he flung it at Little John, and after it another and another. The first struck the giant's shoulder and fell clattering upon the red tiles. The second dish struck Little John as he recoiled and cut his forehead and head. Blood ran down instantly over his cheek, and the third smashed itself against the wall harmlessly. Drawing in his breath, Little John commenced a long chase of his foe, who had raced off to the other side of the table. Let's open that image. So we have Little John chasing Roger about the golden plates. Little John fights with the cook in the sheriff's house. At last he made a dart upon Roger. Ooh, we'll not look at the secrets before us, but you can really see a lot of detail in like this sort of soft picture here. The chainmail about Little John, the red hosiery. Then we have Roger here in blue and brown, after lobbing dishes at Little John. Yep, okay. Let's see here. Thicker than oatmeal, eh? Ah, dear. Drawing his breath, Little John commenced a long chase of his foe, who had raced off to the other side of the table. Neither man spoke, but each eyed the other warily. Anger shone on one face, jealous hate upon the other. They moved round and round the table carefully. There were knives and plenty upon it, and every now and again Roger would seize one and fling it hurriedly at his enemy. Little John ruthlessly followed him, without flinching or abating his set purpose by one jot. At last he made a dart upon Roger, and the chase grew furious. Dishes, plates, covers, pots, and pans, all that came in the way of them, went flying. The noise was awful, then suddenly ceased, for Little John had grasped his prey by the short skirt of his tunic. In another second of time, Roger was secured, fluttering, cursing, and green with a sick terror. Little John lifted him up bodily and flung him with all his strength against the wall of the kitchen. He rebounded from the wall to the dresser, and in convulsive agony gripped hold of those utensils near him. All fell with reverberations of sound, downward with him to the ground. There Roger lay still, save for a slight and hideous twitching of his mouth. Little John opened the door to Robin. Hasten, hasten away from here as soon as you can. There is danger and death. And you? I shall escape. I have a story for them, Little John. Suddenly pushed Robin back into the larder. 'Tis too late. Be silent on your life. Some servants, alarmed by the din, entered. They found Little John, the new kitchen drawer, bending in consternation over the lifeless form of the cook. Run, run, cried he, scarce glancing at them. Here is Roger the cook suddenly dying. His brain has given way. See how the foam flecks upon his lips. Get me water for him, or stay, help me carry him to his bed. Little John picked him up tenderly, and with a face full of seeming concern. The others, aghast at the mere thought of touching a madman, shrank back. The giant carried the unconscious Roger out of the kitchen. The servants came and busied themselves in restoring the kitchen to order. One of them opened the larder. But Robin had laid himself full length upon the top shelf, so he was not discovered. The night wore on, and most of the servants went yawningly to bed. Little John returned, telling the few who remained that the cook was recovered from his fit, but was still delirious and unsafe. I will bank the fire and sleep here, so that I may be able to go to him, continued Little John with a kind air. By my wits, but he did mightily scare me when first the distemper showed in him. He sliced me with the spit. See how my head is cut, and my cheek shows how his horrid teeth did meet in my flesh. Did he indeed bite you, Master Naylor? By my bones, he He bit and tore me like a wild beast. But since I am so big and not fearful of him, I will even watch him through the night, unless you choose to do service, Mickleham. Mickleham swore roundly that he would not. Then get you gone, gossip, said the giant, busying himself with the fire. 'Tis late, and my lord of Hereford has business abroad at an early hour. He bade Robin go back into the buttery, and stay there until dawn. There being no chance of escape out of the castle at this hour, play your part, Locksley, and avoid the bishop's eyes, even as have I. We may meet on the morrow. You have not betrayed us, Little John? Roger the cook was to have sold you. Therefore have I quieted him for the nonce. Here's my hand on it, Locksley, that Little John is loyal, but I do not love Stuteley yet. It will come in time, answered Robin sleepily. You are both sound fellows. Give you good night, honest John. I'll sleep none the worse for my pillow. He stretched himself amid the trampled rushes of the buttery, and laid his head upon the prone body of one of the sleeping butchers. Full a dozen of them had fallen into slumber to the sheriff's rush-bottomed buttery floor. Little John went back to the kitchen, and there carefully and silently collected Master Monceux's gold plate. He put it all into a stout sack, tied it up, and waited patiently for dawn. And with that, my dear wonderful Librophiles and listeners, oh, there's an ad. There's an ad this whole time. Well, this is what you get when you tab out. So I am going to let that ad finish because there's nothing I can do about it. Do 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 do. Mana mana do 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 do. Mana mana do 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 do. Da 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 da. Yep. The ad continues until we'll just close out of that, and I'll save that one for later. And grab this and update the file. Books, edit. Yep, fair amount of reading today. So we should be back from that ad break that I tried to avoid with all of the snoozes, but I guess I didn't read fast enough. Welcome back, everyone. We finished the end of chapter 18, and I'm going to stop here for today. We'll find somebody to raid into, but be sure if you didn't catch it due to an ad break at the end there, the VOD will be up here in just a minute, so you can catch that last little bit of the story. Let's find someone to go raid, and I do apologize, dear Librophiles, for having to subject you to yet more ads, which I endeavor not to do. Let's see. Anybody in this category? We have Neff is reading, but we just rated them fairly recently. There is Storytime Stream, The Stranger Game by Peter Godol. So let's see here. I think they are a live reader, or they might be a PNG tuber. They might be both, but it looks like. I like that they have the book title or the book cover right there on their page. I think that would be really cool to go visit them. As I've never seen them before, I think that would be quite amusing. Yep, they have a kind of a cozy feel. They've got a warm fire and a PNG tuber, it looks like, a reactive. And they're reading The Stranger Game. But they have the sleep experiment as the... I don't know. Who am I to judge? Let's go ahead and go say hello and raid out to Alan and Bill the Duck. Bill the Duck being this adorable plushie sitting on their desk, by the way. Let's go ahead and go say hello. And so while that is doing its thing, we'll do a quick leaving Do one of these with one of those. And one of these. Okay. Copy that. Here's a good raid message for now. There. You are quite welcome, Jules. Thank you for listening. And to all of you wonderful, sleepy listeners, have a wonderful good night. And we will see you all next time on Friday. Let's go, Alley-oop.